Jigs and Bigs is proud to announce we're being supported by Old Glory Outdoors. They're a veteran-owned company that carries fishing and hunting gear. Plus, they're highly active in supporting veteran organizations and charities. Old Glory is an authorized dealer of favorite rods, FX rods, Guggen baits, X-Zone lures, Sixth Sense, and many more. There's a brick-and-mortar store located in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, but you can also order online at oldgloryoutdoors.com. They ship anywhere in the lower 48 states or order online and pick up at the store. When you order, use the promo code JIGS and Bigs and you'll save 10% off your complete order. Plus, you'll help support the show. Make sure to check out the apparel line called OGO Gear while you're there. Old Glory Outdoors believes in the slogan "Start 'em young" to keep kids away from screens and enjoying nature. They've got a full array of live bait too. Check out oldgloryoutdoors.com and use the promo code JIGS and Bigs. Save some money and gear up now. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you had a Merry Christmas, everyone. It's Bobby Roast Beef, and I got Sean the Fisherman with me. It's Jigs and Bigs, post-holiday edition. This is the Christmas vacation edition, I suppose. Some of our listeners, I'm sure, have Christmas vacation. Other ones, we've been on permanent vacation for quite a while. Sean, how you doing today?
Well, good, man. How was your holiday?
Holiday was good. It was really good. You know, there was a lot of talk about how weird everybody thought that the holiday was going to be because of the restrictions on gatherings and everything else. But I got to tell you, I had a great time. I know it was a little bit awkward. We had a couple of Zooms with family. One of them was just a total snafu, technical glitches all over the place, and the other one was all right. But I think honestly, I think that actually kind of made it a little bit more weird, the Zoom meetings. Like, I felt like I was recording a podcast. Really? You know what I mean? It was a little bit weird, but I think everything else was really fantastic. So it was good. The kids had a great Christmas. My family, 2 years ago, I think we started this 5-gift sort of regimen where we broke down gifts into different categories. And it made shopping for the kids great because then we got to sort of like put different compartments into what they were getting. But also, like, we weren't just buying them junk. You know what I mean? Like, just to like throw a bunch of presents at them. So it was pretty cool. My kids are very, very happy. My wife's very happy. My parents are very happy. Everybody's happy. How about you?
Well, we obviously with the coronavirus still raging, we kept it in the within restrictions and just had my mom and dad and my brother. My brother lives with my parents, so we're all together. And then my sister and her husband stopped in. So, I mean, we had a good time, but it was definitely different.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, for most of the night, I undertook a bit of a family chore that needs to be done at some point or another. My parents have 2 gigantic, I don't know what they are, 10 to 15 gallon plastic bins full of photographs from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Okay.
Mostly. But we found some of my grandparents' pictures dated as early as 1929. So
holy crap.
Yeah, I'm in the process of, I actually got, most of them had envelopes that came from the developers.
Yep. Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah. So, but it's only helpful to control the photos. I mean, they've been mixed up over time and duplicates all over the place of this, that, and the other thing. So what we did last night was my mom, my brother, and my wife and I all sat down and went through them and just started really writing down what was what. And the value of this is involving my parents. At some point, we're going to get to a point where nobody's going to know who some of these acquaintances and friends are from the past.
Exactly.
I already am in the dark on some of the, folks from the 60s and 70s that are in these pictures. But yeah, we're going through them and we're just kind of documenting everything. And, I kind of regard myself as a librarian or at least somewhat of a family historian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just kind of roll through that.
That's awesome.
I say somewhat. I've got another couple of relatives who really dig deep on the family tree.
Yep.
I kind of deal with what we have. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So Definitely. that was yesterday, and we ate a a shit ton of food. And I just showed you before we started recording that I have some leftover cranberry bread my wife made that is just absolutely killer. So I'm
nice
getting big on that this week.
So well, I'm glad you brought up food. We ate like gluttons this whole week. I really, really, really have to get back on that. Since the whole quarantine started, I've stopped counting calories and I've been doing okay, but then the holidays have been bad news. Holidays have been very bad news. So I got to get back on the horse and get on that. But I'm glad you brought up food because I was yesterday after we had done, Christmas morning festivities and the kids were opening their presents and my wife was, had spiked my coffee liberally with this very, very good Irish cream from Cork, Ireland. So, we're enjoying some of that and getting breakfast all handled. I decided I'd come down and get in front of this clip show that we're organizing right here, the best of 2020. So I went through a bunch of the clips and I was itemizing some things. So I'm down here in the disco dungeon doing what Bobby do. Which sounds sinister, but it's just editing. And then my wife is up in the kitchen. And for Christmas Day, it was just in agreement from both my sister and my folks that we were, instead of doing a huge dinner, everybody's going to make a couple of different appetizers. And we're just going to kind of like graze and just kind of hang out. So she was working on the items that we had that were, in theory, very, very simple. We were doing a blue cheese stuffed date that's wrapped in bacon. These are amazing, absolutely delicious. And that was pretty simple. So she was up there working on that. And then her other idea, she wanted to do a traditional French meat pie, which is one of my favorite items in the world. In fact, I used to ask my grandmother for one every year for Christmas. And my parents thought I was, just kind of being, thoughtful and everything, like, oh, no, she can just make this. She doesn't have to go out and like buy much, whatever. It's like she does this stuff anyway. No. Like she just made a killer French meat pie. And my wife knows I'm a big fan, so she wanted to go to town with this and give it a go. So she made the filling. And the filling came out, it just slapped. It was so good. Spot on, like bringing back memories of childhood, like really great. Well, she wanted to our plan was just to kind of take the easy way out and use a frozen crust. But when we had defrosted the crust, she wanted to go roll it out. And keep in mind, I'm in the basement now, right underneath her in the kitchen, working on this. And she goes to unroll the crust, and it starts like coming apart. It was basically just breaking apart. She's like losing her mind. And all I can hear is just like loud, excessive swearing coming from overhead. It was so entertaining. And I go upstairs and I was like, hey, can I help you? And I got the eye daggers of all eye daggers. No. Well, I got to tell you, she ended up making her own pie crust and did that in place. And that thing came out awesome. It came out so unbelievably good. The very last slice of it I was able to keep, and I had it for breakfast this morning. My God, it is so good. There's nothing that makes me happier than French meat pie with a big, thick slice of cranberry jelly right on top. It's so good.
Good stuff.
Oh, my God. It's like my favorite thing in the world. So anyway, that's like my big food like thing. I think it's pretty good. How did Santa treat you?
Santa treated me pretty good.
Yeah.
I what I do is every year I ask for Santa Claus I put an Amazon wish list up because
that's what Holly and I do.
It's 2020. Santa Claus knows how to read.
Exactly.
So a lot of items come out of there. And honestly, for Christmas, I really like getting, music, and I like getting books.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes in. So I got quite a few music items, quite a few books, and a couple fishing items. So I did get 2 large spools of Seaguar and Vizex, which was nice.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I run through that crap. So getting a couple 600-yard spools was pretty nice. And what else did I get?
No pun intended, but that'll go the distance.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. That was awful. I didn't have time to hit mute on that one. Sorry. No, but it was good. Santa Claus treated everybody in the house pretty good, and we had an absolute blast. One of the big things I want to do a little quick shout out for. Yep. This is a good little, shall we say, Sean the Present Buyer story. We'll call that.
Oh, okay.
My oldest son is getting heavily into video games, and I understand that. And, we've talked about me being a gamer before.
Sure.
So I was thinking of a really original gift to get him, and was kind of coming up with nothing really. And then maybe about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I went through my bookmarks on my web browser.
That's dangerous.
Well, I was clearing them out. And then I saw one that a friend of mine that I was stationed with years ago.
Yep.
Was way into video games as well. And like 2 or 3 years ago, he decided to do a crowdfunding thing. Set up a crowdfunding page.
Yep.
So that he could write a book, a complete checklist of pretty much every video game and system released in the world to that point. I think it was as of 2017 or 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he did that and he wrote the book, and I totally forgot about the crowdfunding. I totally forgot to donate. I forgot everything. Yeah. Right. And I literally forgot about this book until I saw my bookmark. I said, oh, wonder if he published it, blah, blah, blah. Well, he went over his goal. He published the book. It's a hardcover. And I happened to message him and said, hey man, hope things are well. I was clearing out my bookmarks and saw this, and I think my son would love it. Do you have any copies left? Yeah. And he said, his response was, it is so weird that you texted me, because I haven't talked to him in probably 4 years.
Yeah.
He said, it was so weird you texted me. I was over my in-laws yesterday and found one last copy.
No shit. Really?
Yeah. So we got it. So what I asked him to do was, I said, well, I gave my son's name. I said, could you, as the author, could you write something on the inner cover?
Yeah.
Something cool. And I gave him an example like, hey, so, I'm not going to say my son's name, but hey, so-and-so. Hey, Sean the Fisherman Jr.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy this book the way I enjoyed your dad whooping my ass at Mario Kart 64 for 5 years.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was really nice. He did it.
Great.
He did end up writing something very nice in the cover. But the funny part about this is my buddy bears a very striking resemblance to George Clooney.
Oh, really?
Does it? Yeah, he's not as tall as George Clooney, but he's close enough that military folks always get nicknames, and he was Clooney for the whole time I worked with him.
Okay, yeah.
And if he ever messed up, I would just look at him, shake my head, and go,
"God damn you, Clooney!"
And on top of that, you're the worst Batman ever.
Oh, but not in a. That is completely accurate. That is completely accurate. The worst Batman, yeah.
It is. Yeah. And when I don't know, Affleck made a run at it, but whatever.
I think Affleck did much better than Clooney. Kilmer wasn't fantastic.
But he's better than Clooney.
He was better than Clooney.
So I'd like to thank my buddy Tristan for doing all that
That's awesome.
For our household for Christmas. It was awesome, and my son loves it to death. So
nice. That's great.
It's good stuff.
We had a big video game Christmas over here too. My wife is a big gamer, and my youngest daughter is a big gamer. And what's funny about the two of them is they're both into the same style of games heavily, and there's one game that they align on spot on, and that's Skyrim, specifically Elder Scrolls.
Okay.
And my youngest, what did she get? She got a pin, like a Skyrim pin to put on her backpack or on a jacket or something like that. She got a necklace, a Skyrim necklace, a book of all Skyrim, like it's kind of like an encyclopedia. And then she also got a Legend of Zelda encyclopedia as well. And
awesome.
There's a brand new Legend of Zelda that I forget where in the lineup it shows up. I forget, Hyrule Revenge or something like that. She got that new game. It just came out for Switch not that long ago. My wife, when did she get that? Was video game.
Cadence of Hyrule?
That might be it.
That's my son got it. Santa brought that for my son.
Yeah, it was a brand new one, and she's so psyched on that. So psyched. For me, fishing stuff. For me, my wife and I. Is this the last year? No, this is the first year we decided to do this. Last year we decided we were only going to stuff each other's stockings. That was the plan. That's what we're going to do this year. We're limiting ourselves to stocking stuffers only. And I told her, I said, we can upsize on the items that we're putting in there. But I go, let's just, this is all about the kids. My oldest got an electric guitar, like coolest gift you can give a kid ever, like 16-year-old kid, psyched. And the first thing, I was so happy. First thing she started playing when she plugged it in and tried out, Zombie from the Cranberries.
I saw that. I saw you threw that up on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm like, that's awesome. Proud dad moment. So I was pretty psyched for that. I had my wish list was full of tungsten. And I think it's pretty safe to say that this year Bobby Roast Beef's Christmas was brought to you by Reaction Tackle, because
Nice.
I got more drop shot weights, flipping weights, worm weights. I got more shaky heads, a ton of those underspins, those quarter-ounce tungsten underspins that I like, you name it. So I got terminal tackle up the wazoo, and I'm psyched. I'm going to actually probably some point over this weekend go through my terminal tackle box and reorganize it, get some things together. I got plenty of time to do all that stuff. I still want, I got reels to clean and everything else, and that was pretty much it. Oh no, I take that back. There's one other quasi fishing related gift that was given. My parents got my wife and I a vacuum sealer. A food saver.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is one of those, it's one of those items where we've talked about how great it would be to have one. And I'll tell you, I've gone out before where I've gone fishing specifically to harvest and have, fish in the freezer. And I would go out and I might catch 6 or 8 different fish and get home and process them as you would. And then when I store them, I do the old school, take a gallon size Ziploc bag, fill it full of water and freeze it so that they're frozen in it. But the problem with doing that is that then you have, 8 fillets, 12 fillets, all in this. Maybe you don't need all of those. So, and at the same time, sure, you could do, smaller bags, but then you're just freezing X amount of water. It's crazy. I think that this is going to be a better use and a better way to effectively store whatever we need, really, which is pretty freaking cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be cool. Could be fun for some catch and cook projects down the road where maybe, while I'm catching, I'm not necessarily going to do a cook right there, but, do a cook. Sounds like I'm making meth. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. And
Exactly.
actually, I do mind. There's a different way of vacuum sealing that when I first started learning about this, vacuum sealers were still expensive. It wasn't like you were going out and getting one for $20 and then the bags were under $5 or whatever they are now.
Yep, exactly.
So what I do is I actually fill a lobster pot with water, right? And I'll use a quart freezer bag with a zipper. I like the ones with the zippers on them.
Yep.
And I'll just buy the Walmart brand and I'll put the fish in there and you leave the thing open, maybe, I don't know, a third of the way, and you push out as much air as you can. And then you drop it into the water. The water pressure pushes the rest of the air out and you just zip it underwater. None of the water gets in there. So it's the same thing as vacuum sealing. It's not as perfect, but it's good. And I stick with that.
Oh yeah.
But I am jealous of everyone who uses vacuum sealers, but I'm just kind of set my ways on that one.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. It was just one of those things that we've always were like, yeah, you know what, that would be, we definitely would get a lot of use. We have a big chest freezer. We've got a good sized freezer in our kitchen. We're like, we should definitely take advantage of it, and so that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to using that. Had a good conversation with my dad when he was sharing a fishing story, and I at the time we're sitting around drinking his homemade wine. That's another project that we're gonna do as well. I said to my wife, I was like, yeah, let's make some wine and do that for gifts for our friends next year. She's like, that's a really good idea. Just do a 5 to 10 gallon batch and do that. But this was really good. He did a Chianti and it was dynamite. So we're after dinner on Christmas Eve, we were having this conversation. He was telling me the story about, this will tie into something I wanted to bring up anyway. So he told me this story about him and his buddies used to go up to Champlain all the time. And I guess this one day it was just pouring rain and it was just crazy windy. So they didn't go fishing that day. So they went into town and they stopped by this bait shop and they were talking to this one guy that was in there. And they were talking about how good the pike bite was. And, they're like, the guy asked him, he's like, you guys ever eat pike? And he's like, yeah, I have. But, filleting, it's such a pain in the ass. I can't get it right. And the guy says to him, he goes, well, if you get on any good pike, he's like, bring them back here and I'll give you guys a little lesson on how it's done. So they caught a beast. They ended up with a little over 5 pounds of pike meat. And they bring the fish over there, and the guy comes over and he does the fillet for him. This is in the back of the bait shop, and he wheels out a little Fry Daddy, a little station, so he knows what's up. And he's like, them. It was the three of them, and then this other couple of customers that were in the back. Between all of them, they ate the entire take. Fried the whole thing in the back of the store, ate the entire thing. I'm like, all right, that's pretty awesome. But here's what's funny about my dad, my dad's buddy. So he's I don't know if he does a whole lot. He used to be a pig farmer. and nice dude. I mean, I've known this guy forever, so he just discovered Jigs and Bigs. And I love that. So, Roy, if you're listening, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. But lately, I have been getting oddly enough, and keep in mind, I'm not going to throw his age out there, but, my dad is a little up there in years, and Roy's right in that ballpark. I have been getting Facebook messages from Roy with TikToks that he thinks are funny. And they are hilarious, but I'm like, talk about not being the target audience for that social media group. First thing that came to mind, I'm like, Roy, you're on TikTok? What? What is this?
When you started talking, I thought he was going to be sending you messages while,
listening to the show or something?
Yeah, his opinions on topics. He's sending you TikToks.
He's just sending me TikToks.
All right, whatever. Each their own. This is America.
What was it? It was Wednesday. I was hosting trivia, and I was setting my gear up Wednesday night, and then boom, I get this message. I was like, holy crap. One thing, a shameless plug. It's been 39 episodes. I haven't done this yet. If you guys are looking for something to do on New Year's Eve and you're limited in what you can do, if you're in the Springfield, Mass area, I am hosting a big fat speed quiz of the year. The way it works, it's open to come in. Anybody can play for free, absolutely, but we're doing a winner-take-all pool, and I will have links available on my Bobby Roast Beef stuff. Shoot me a DM, and I'll get you information for it, but it's going to be a winner-take-all cash prize. It's going to be pretty awesome. So we're going to do that. That's New Year's Eve, and it's early because we've got to be done by 9:30, so it'll be a 7 p.m. event.
Where's that at?
That's at Nathan Bill's in Springfield. Nathan Bill's, nice. And what's nice about Nathan Bill's is that they have a banquet room as well, the TJ Sullivan banquet facility that has about 100-person capacity in there. But when they open that up, they're connected. They're able to kind of, with the new restrictions for seating and capacity, they're able to sort of expand their footprint a little bit. So I'm going to cater toward that and put remote speakers in places so everybody can be socially distanced and all that stuff. It'll just be a whole lot of fun. So
you say that's. Did you say 39 episodes? This is episode 39.
Yeah, I think this is either 39 or 40.
We did this for 40 times. We did this 40 times. Oh my God.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like it's been a great show. Like this whole thing has been absolutely killer. And it's awesome. And actually, that's the perfect segue right into the purpose of the show. This is the 2020 retrospective. We're going to look back at some of our favorite moments. I think it's going to be great. You and I had come up with, we said we were going to pick 5 each. Right?
Yeah.
And somehow we have 13 clips in here. So that should tell you we've got some good stuff.
And on top of that, I think I sent you a message. Our memories are shot. I remember stuff like I was going back into like October, November episodes going, oh, I forgot we did that.
Yep. Oh yeah, man.
and so honestly, some of the earlier episodes, the spring and the summer ones, I think we were still getting our feet under us, and there's funny stuff in there, but it's more developmental, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I went through a lot of stuff, but it's all good. We made a list and we checked it twice.
We did. And we certainly found out who was naughty and who was nice.
There was no nice. Yeah. We're just assholes.
It's true. We're pretty much just. Oh, I do.
Hey, one last thing I want to say before we jump into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am going this afternoon after we're done recording to check ice levels. We had a lot of rain.
We did. And 60-degree temperatures.
Yeah, and I found before all this heat wave, before the heat wave happened, I found 5.5-inch thick ice up to Shears. Yeah. I was very excited to possibly go fish it tomorrow. Well, I'm going to recheck it after this shit because I'm not risking my own ass or anybody else around me. So.
I'm not available for tomorrow. I'm booked up. I won't be able to make it regardless, but I am interested to know if there is actually even safe ice, and how it's going to play out. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll send you a text tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's it. Sorry, I cut in on that. I wanted to squeeze it in, and we segued into the best of 2020. But
no worries at all. You know how this goes. There's tangents. There's clearly something's working for us.
We might rename this Jigs and Tangents.
Jigs and Tangents. Because periodically we catch bigs, but Couple of things that I do want to mention before we start going through the breakdown list of some of the items here, and I completely had a brain fart where the hell I was going with that. Oh, no. So some of you might have noticed. I remember now.
You all right? Do I have time to go get a coffee right now?
Christmas Eve, I had made a post for the Jigs and Bigs. Well, it was kind of a special episode, really. It was a roundtable, and we discussed this in the episode last Tuesday, the regularly scheduled episode. We released the roundtable episode with myself, Brian, and Bailey, and Andrew. Those are they're hosts of amazing fishing podcast, Paddle and Fin, Serious Angler, and Tackle Talk. We had a little roundtable discussion and went about 90 minutes in total, and it was a great conversation. It was a good conversation to have. It was especially good if you kind of are into content creation, regardless of if you're a podcaster or your format is YouTube or you're a content creator on Instagram or TikTok or anything. It was kind of a great sort of conversation about that side of things, and we rarely really dive into the real guts of all that stuff. So we talked a little bit about motivation and the sort of like the rewards that we get out of this, what keeps us going. It was a really great conversation. Big shout out and thank you to those guys. I gave it a listen because I just wanted to kind of put our brand on it, our open and stuff. So I gave it another listen. I said, this came out really, really fantastic. I know you listened to it, Sean, and you gave me some feedback about it all as well. And there's a couple of things that come up, and we'll, as we go through our clips of 2020 that we chose, there's a couple of things that we kind of touched on in there that will show up in some of these clips, and I might make reference to that as we kind of go along.
Cool. Yeah, I did listen to it. I thought it was great. And a lot of the times, if we got to, once again, we pull back the beef curtain a little bit here. You're responsible for a lot of the editing, and you and I have talked more and more about me getting more involved in the future. But yeah, no, that was completely educational. I thought it was great, man.
Yeah,
you really you showed up, you did your thing as usual, and it's always top notch.
Yeah, I thought it was
nice. Yeah, it was nice to hear the other podcasters give us both you and I some compliments on that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I mean, they're great dudes. Definitely check out those shows. Especially I think on all four of those shows, we all are connected to kayak fishing specifically, but we all have, it's great because they're four totally different shows. In fact, if you look at Paddle and Fin has something for anybody because there's so many different, they've kind of itemized different shows, and they're doing uploads all week long. It's really, really fantastic. So check those guys out. If you're getting into podcasts, give them a subscribe. Check out an episode or two, and it's all good stuff. It's great. I do love. I'm not a big fan of having the idea of people that do similar things to what you're doing, treating them as competition. I try to really look at community more than anything else. I think that everybody benefits when you look at that, and the total product of all elements together is improved when that goes on. So I thought it was pretty cool that a bunch of podcasters come together, share some experiences and things like that, tell some stories. It was definitely very, very cool. So check it out. People are definitely listening to it. The number keeps clicking up for listens, so that's pretty cool. I wasn't sure people were going to hear it because it was an oddball release. We did it on a day that we normally don't upload, and we did it on a holiday. So I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but people are definitely listening. So that's awesome. That is.
Yeah. Again, it's incredibly educational for someone who's just getting into podcasting or, just wants to learn a little bit about it, a little bit more. I mean, you never stop learning, and it was, it was eye-opening for me to listen to that. So
nice.
Good job.
Thank you, dude. You want to jump in here with start talking about our first clip, or do you have something you want to add?
No, that's it. Give that. That's it. Give that show a listen to. It is really good. I thought it was good.
It's definitely fun for sure. And check out those other programs as well. They do really, really good stuff. So let's just segue right into it here. There's 13 clips here we're going to go through. We're basically going to talk a little bit about them and then play them. But I'm going to leave all microphones open so that we can just react over it. If there's something that's fantastic or something that needs to get brought up, then cool, we'll go ahead and do that. But if there's anything major, Sean, what we'll do is we'll just kind of save that conversation for in between in going into the next clip. So feel free, you're probably going to hear us laugh and react to some things, but we'll go ahead and go for it. So this first clip was this was your pick, wasn't it, Sean? This is the one with Debo, right?
I think we both thought it was a good idea because, to date, that's our most listened to episode. Yeah, and I thought pulling something from that, that was really the heart of the conversation was a good idea. And you just kind of said, you left it up to me to kind of grab this clip, and I went through it and found what I thought was a real good, the epitome of this talk.
Yeah, so. It was, and that was a great interview. Working with Debo. I was actually a little bit nervous when I did this interview, mainly just because his viewership and his fans, they really love this guy. Like, they really, really do. And, the more you watch his content and you see kind of what he's all about, like, he's pretty much as genuine as you can get. And it's really good. So I'm going to go ahead and just play this clip, and we'll go ahead and react over it.
Cool. In your opinion, Debo, what is your goal for fishing? Like, where do you want it to take?
I'm an idiot. I'm going to cut this out.
What the fuck was that?
I hit the slider here for pitch, so sit tight. All right, 3, 2. In your opinion, Debo, what is your goal for fishing? Like, where do you want it to take you in the future in the next, 5 to 10 years? Where do you see yourself?
That is a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out.
I think we all are.
Yeah. For me, like I said, starting out, it was going to be to document. And if I could maybe help a few people along the way, my channel has done leaps and bounds more than I ever dreamed possible. So it's, I've always said that I don't want to have, be a full-time YouTube person. And it's just, with a family and stuff, what happens if, something goes wrong with YouTube and you can't, I never ever even thought that would be a possibility. But, you see people now making legit livings.
Oh, yeah.
Making a legit living off of, solely just doing YouTube fishing and stuff. So I always said that would never be a possibility, but I don't know, that's more of a reality now than ever. So,
definitely.
If something like that happens, great. But for me, it's just making the videos, helping people.
Yeah.
I get so much enjoyment out of people messaging me and saying, hey, I tried these tips that you shared and I caught my PB. And that, to me, that's what it's about there.
That's
kind of stuff.
Huge. Absolutely huge. Like, there is a tournament, a virtual fishing tournament that just started this last June, and it alternates every month, and we kind of partner with them, and it's nationwide. Anybody can take part in it, and it's a funky little group that organizes this. And initially, it gets to be a lot of work, like delivering the standings and everything, and coming up with all the information of what's gone on in the last week, because it's a monthly tournament or bi-monthly. And when I was debating, thinking like, oh, maybe we could, put this more on the blog, like, so that way when people are there. And then we got this email from one of the competitors from the tournament, and it was one of these emails where he was basically saying, I haven't ever fished competitively before, and this was absolutely amazing. It made me think about fishing in a brand new way. It had me really excited, and I was checking the statistics and then hearing about it on the show. So it was like that kind of thing. When you get that feedback, you're like, I don't care how much work it is. Like, I'm just going to do it. We're going to make it happen. It's really, really unbelievable. I can definitely relate to what you're talking about. So what's interesting about that clip is that I had forgotten about that email, that message from, I think it was Teddy Forget.
Yeah, it was.
It was. I think it was Teddy Forget who sent the message. Initially, it went to Seth over at Chronic Trips, and it was after kind of hearing while I was talking with Debo, I remember that popped in my mind. I'm just like, yeah, it's true. Like I think that, and that's a reference to what we talked about on that roundtable with what I spoke with Brian and Bailey and Andrew about is that's part of the reason why we put the work into this, or at least personally from my end of it. It's like it's that engagement. You do something and then somebody appreciates it, and it's just like Debo said, where hey, I put this fishing tip up on YouTube and I got some feedback from somebody. They're like, hey, I tried doing this and I caught a new PB, or it actually worked. I've got confidence in this lure. I think that is the biggest reward that a content creator can receive is that when it all kind of goes full circle like that. I think there's nothing better than that. What about you, Sean?
Completely agree. And we discussed that at the end of last week's show, where I had mentioned getting feedback from a couple of sources. One in particular was Chris Dabari, which we got more feedback on from our last show as well.
Great feedback.
But yeah, Chris, we could talk metal all day and we'll at least have one listener. It'll be great. So yeah, no, it is amazing that, people will reach out, and if we go into something on the show, maybe lightly touch something, maybe a rod setup or some sort of a combo or whatever, matching it with line. Our listeners have been really, really awesome about reaching out to us on Instagram and just asking what they want to, asking like for in-depth explanations. Like, Eric Graves reached out to me last week talking about jig rods. I was like, yeah, no problem. This is what I use. Are you using right or left hand? What are you going to do here? What are you going to do there? And yeah, I think he's got a good game plan going forward. But yeah, it's great. The interaction is definitely the best part of this so far.
I agree 100%. So for this next clip, we'll set it up, and this is a Sean the Fisherman clip. This is it comes from the library of Sean the Fisherman segments that came together really when this show was in its infancy. This one was a little bit later on, and it's a little bit of a PSA. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it.
Okay. Hey, this is Sean the Fisherman with a public service announcement this week. I would like to ask all of you who live on lakes, not only in Massachusetts and New England, but across the nation. If you live on a lake and you have windows that face the lake, I want you to always keep in mind that someone could be out on the water and does not want to see you in any state of undress, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like. We don't want to see it. Some might. I don't. Last week, I was out on a lake. I thought I'd seen the last of this stuff where people would be in various states of undress on the water, near the water, in their window. But instead, I was forced into a conversation with a German man in a bathrobe on a dock for 20 minutes. I don't know how things work in Germany, but in America, I'm out there to fish. If I want to see naked people, I will do what the rest of red-blooded Americans do and go on the internet. Thank you. I'm Sean the Fisherman. Have a great week.
So the follow-up to that was, I think it was a week or two later, was when that naked guy was flossing himself.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so that it just doesn't stop. And then here's a better one. If another follow-up to that. So Nelson was with me that day when when I had witnessed the naked guy flossing his crotch with his shirt.
That was amazing.
Oh God. Well, a week later, or whatever it was later, maybe 2 weeks later, I'd gone night fishing with Nelson, and there was a bit of a miscommunication. I told him one lake and went to another, and met up with him later, and I felt bad, so I brought him a bag of chips and a soda, and I said, "Here you go, man." He goes, "Well, you missed the show," and I said, "What show did I miss?" He goes, "There's a house over there. People have been partying all night. All the lights went out. Everyone went home, and then," he goes, "without warning, one of the residents came down, took off all her clothes, stood in the moonlight for a second, jumped in the lake, got back out, went back upstairs." And I go, "With you right here?" He goes, "Yep." so I get to see all the dudes naked. Nelson has seen one naked person, and it's not a dude.
Not a dude.
Yeah, that's just 2020 for me.
I mean, with that said, keep in mind, Nelson did manage to also see somebody using a birch tree inappropriately.
Yeah,
for selfish reasons.
That is true. That is true. But I chose that clip. I was going through. I think that was on the largemouth sass episode, and you had sent me there to that episode to find something else, and I came across that and said, "Oh, that's a good one." So.
Yeah. That's what it is. We're working, we're trying to share information to benefit everybody, really, even if it's residents of a lake. I'm just going to jump right into this next one because I feel like it speaks for itself. And bibbidi bobbidi boo! We do a podcast, motherfuckers! Now, what's so convenient for that, Sean, is that clip is already made and it times out perfectly to be a trivia buzzer. So that might be your buzzer for trivia nights from here on out.
I've been assigned a buzzer. Well, there's a little bit more to that clip. I think I threw the whole thing at you. There was you had gotten tongue tied, just like
yes,
I just did right there. You had gotten tongue tied. And I just thought it was so funny that, I don't know, I was myself for a second, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was so good. And I remember you're like, no, we got to cut that. And I was like, oh, no, this cannot get cut. That has to be included.
That was the first of 2 Easter eggs. So for anybody who's listening, there are a couple episodes out there. Yeah. And here's your clue. That's the first where we screwed up or something happened or chaos ruled, and we put it at the end of the podcast. So if you listen through the ending, the play out song, there's a couple of clips that are lying in wait for you.
Periodically, there'll be something there in bonus, and actually, we'll talk about one of those, another one further down. But there's a little bit more to that one. So this next one, was this? Did I choose this one? This is we're talking about. We're on the phone with. This is the one about the origin of Woo Tungsten.
Yeah, this was your call.
This was my call. So this was an interesting one. I had thought this needed to be included because this interview was interesting for a couple of reasons. I never really had gone to play around with anybody's what do you call it? I had never gone to contact a company about being on this show. I would contact fishermen, and usually what it would be, friends of guests a lot of the time, or it would be just people in the inner circle or through social media that I would kind of connect with. And that's how I would kind of find the guests. I had never had a company or an organization reach out to me. And when I got an email from Woo that they would be interested in being a guest on the show, I kind of took that as like a major compliment that we were sort of like somebody was listening to the point where they thought there was some level of value with what we were creating here. And I felt like at the time, we were talking about midsummer, this one came out, and it really felt like, this was definitely like a mile marker where we had kind of gotten to a certain point where we're kind of being taken seriously, which I still cannot believe to this point there. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I remember recording that while I was on vacation. I was out of town. I recorded that one remotely with you. I jumped in on that call, and and this is where getting back to podcasting itself, which we talked about before these clips. That's I think some of that is some of that interview we did was a little rough on my part. You know what I mean? But I thought it was the interview overall. That's where like you and I worked together, where you kind of reeled me in, pun intended, and we got back on topic and everything went smooth. A little self-deprecating there, but I love that. It was a good conversation and it was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's exactly it. It was really good. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But tell me a little bit about Woo and how the company came to be, where you started out, and what the road was like building yourself up, like to the point now where you've got so much going on for such a social presence.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's fun to be able to jump on and chat fishing, right? And when I say that, because when you ask like where did it start, like that's all it is. That's where it started. So, my partner, a co-founder, Chris, we grew up fishing tournaments together.
Nice.
So it started from 2 guys who love fishing, and I'm in the north too, so I've got those toothy critters.
Yep.
You got pike everywhere, and tungsten. Is such an advantage. It's just got such a, I started flipping with tungsten and I really understood, I guess, the benefit. Mm-hmm. And I really got sick of having a pike end up with a $7 lip ring every time you get one to bite. So so we started looking for options, and we we've been in the fishing world, obviously, fishing tournaments, and just as long as I can remember, and running a lot of businesses that are non-fishing, and we saw an opportunity, I think, to try it. And I knew that if I was looking for tungsten sponsors because of the cost, but also the benefit, that other people had to be. So it wasn't this let's say crazy epiphany per se. It was more of like something that just kind of happened. But I think that's why it's probably worked, because it's been so natural. We both love fishing. We both love the industry. And for us, I understand social in the sense of, social media. A lot of people think it's about them. Meanwhile, for us, it's actually about everyone else. So what we decided we would do is actually, before we even introduced the product, we thought we'd try and see if we can build a community. That's what we did. We went on, we went to Instagram. Instagram's a bit different 4 or 5 years ago than where it is now, but we started building a community by being social in the areas and with the people that we thought would make sense. So that's what we started to do. And as we were doing that, we were doing some more, I'll say, research and building some products and building some of the brands, building the packaging. It took about 6 months, I'll say, to put together. And then we'd had this community built that we could introduce some products to. Yeah. And, it's been, I'll call it a slow burn. I think, like, when people sometimes see us for the first time, they think we just popped up. Meanwhile, it's been 4 years. We actually spend more time, again, it's my thumbs, it's Chris's thumbs in Instagram. We do the we're posting. We don't have a digital marketing company that's doing our post. It's grinding. Yeah. And when I say that, we love it. It's part of what we do. And I think that's why we've been able to get to where we are, because we genuinely love the sport. It's not some publicly traded company that has the brand in a portfolio. We genuinely are still in it. We have a text number. It is my number. It does come to my phone. When we send out some of those things, that is me. When we bring something, and I send an update, we'll have an update, for example, that we're planning to send out by text for a new pack that we put together. We're going to block off 4 or 5 hours so I can sit there and write. We're going to get 1,700 people respond in the first 15 minutes. I'm going to sit there for 5 hours and go through them and write back. So, it's been cool. And I think for us, that's why it's probably growing, because we genuinely enjoy it. I think it's super cool to be able to design products and put them out there. Anybody who's poured their own plastic bait or done something like that somewhere along the way knows what I mean when a fish bites it. Definitely. So for me, it's just, it's fun to be able to design things. It's fun to be able to introduce and share those with a lot of other people. And I genuinely think, we made our drop shot weights green because I had smallmouth eating the weight when it's shiny. Yeah. Now we painted it green. It's green, but if we didn't have Woo, I'd just be painting. I'd just be painting weights in my basement. Exactly. I get the opportunity to share it with other people. So again, we started. It's been a slow build, and it's been a slow build, but also a very quick build. But it's daily, 4 years building it, pushing it, but then at the same time not forgetting about the other people that have been a part of this community that we've been able to build. And I think that's often people go the other direction. They build the product and then try and get it to a community. And for us, we're more focused on our community because we're just passionate anglers and want as many people like that as a part of what we're doing. And naturally, when we introduce products to that group, they're gonna want to be a part of it. And that's kind of where we're at. That's how we kind of got to where we're at, and we're having just as much, if not more, fun now. Yeah, you said there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, there is. There is, absolutely.
We're more fun now with it, right? With that. So again, that's kind of where we're at.
That was a really big turn also for us with social media. When we did that interview, we were talking to Aaron, kind of gave me a little bit more of a vision as far as a plan for social media, as far as where I really wanted to go with growth. I sort of had this one blanket goal that I was working on, and since then, when we had that conversation with him, and it made me think about things a little bit differently. as far as the way we kind of handle our Instagram, specifically with Instagram, like that's a major player for this podcast, and Aaron was really helpful in that, and just seeing the growth that Woo has created for itself based on community is like that's just massive, absolutely. But this was a major interview where I walked away like this happened, Yeah. I mean, it just floored me.
Aaron said a lot in that interview without saying a lot.
He really did.
As far as outlining a lot of strategies and not just fishing, but business.
Yeah.
I think I pulled that clip too, right? I think you just said grab something from Aaron's interview because that interview was so good. I could have gone in any direction with that, but I picked up that one and I thought it was really important. And I also saw how it affected the show.
Yep.
Our show. So yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it definitely was a great pick for sure. We got into that interview, and when we had scheduled it, Sean and I started talking about a lot of the lead laws in Mass, really, and we started kind of at that point looking at, okay, so what other states are kind of like this? And we realized that we are kind of in the minority with that, because most of the states you can go and use lead. So we wanted to kind of talk about how it affects certain states and basically some of the lead alternatives that are out there for sure. Tungsten being among one of the best performers that you could utilize, and with Woo having being a tungsten company primarily, that's what their focus is tungsten weight. It was perfect, sort of like it gave us something, it localized it for us because we were able to talk as Mass anglers and kind of discuss some of this stuff. We got into that interview pretty heavily with that, and I know we were talking, we're like afterwards, I know Sean had mentioned something like, oh, we kind of jumped on him a little bit with the lead laws and everything, but I think it was important to have that conversation. With somebody who's in the business of providing lead alternatives, so for Mass anglers that are out there, you're not supposed to throw lead jigs.
Yeah, that was my bad for the jumping. I get fired up, that.
Oh, but nothing wrong with that.
That's the behind the beef curtain theme of this show is. I think the number one thing you've told me 1,000 times since we started this was, we keep our foothold, being Western Mass anglers, but this show is not just heard in Western Mass. So that's the thing I always have to keep in mind. And I got deep into the Mass lead laws on that one, probably a little too deep into the weeds, and you pulled me out of it, and we, went on with the interview. But
I think it's kind of funny. I took a deep dive on our analytics a little bit further, and I was able to actually break down after that roundtable with the other podcasters. I was able to kind of break down some of our analytics of the way that it looks, and while obviously America, the U.S. is the main breakdown, just under 25% of our listenership is from Massachusetts. Like just in the American breakdown. Other states, or they all kind of break up. There's 40%, or what am I saying? Sure, the remainder of that, the remainder 75% is all over the nation, but they're peppered all over the place. We have a good concentration of New England anglers, and that also goes. We got to roll in Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and those surrounding states as well. Because if they fish in Mass, those are the the lead laws are the lead laws. That's the way it's set up. So better to know and then make a decision. With how all this is going. This next clip is it's pretty recent.
Uh-oh.
It's holiday themed. I'm just gonna go for it. Is that good?
Shoot.
Let's do it.
Smooth listening on MacB West.
The dog barking in the background.
Yeah, dog going, yeah. So Amazon's here with the Christmas gift, so I gotta go.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for
get off the fucking window.
It had a laugh track in it all by itself.
So that was the chaos in my house in the holidays. My dog jumps up on the front window to see who's coming to the door, and you saw me. I put my hands over the microphone, and it didn't work.
It did not work. It was great, man.
I know. So.
Oh God, it was great. Get off the fucking window.
Yeah, he jumps up on the window. My two dogs are carving up the freaking windows when they see people come in. So I leave the shades closed now during the day.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good idea.
That was funny. That was another. That was another Easter egg, wasn't it?
And
I believe it was.
It was no.
That wasn't.
That was in the outro. That was actually in the outro. Right there.
That's right.
And what was great about that clip is that was a good impression. And there's a couple of things that you're going to hear here and there. I mess with the audio. In fact, I accidentally did it when we started the first clip. But with this, I like to mess with some audio right there. And you got a little bit of that in there with this. I think I was parodying a smooth jazz thing when you said smooth coming in with the MacB West.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we should probably note on that it is MAKB. I've been calling it MacB for
forever.
Years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Ken actually sent us a message saying
it was cease and desist order. Yeah.
What are you guys doing with this MacB shit? We're like, what? What are you talking about? We thought that's what the I don't know, pronunciation of the initials were.
Yeah.
And no, it is
MAKB.
Yeah, so he appointed me director without me knowing how to properly say the organization's name. Sorry, Ken. We weren't doing that on purpose.
I have taken jobs where I did not catch my direct supervisor's name before or something, so it's okay. It's all right.
As long as you didn't swear at him, I guess that's fine.
No,
right?
That's exactly it. I was like, get off the fucking window.
Yeah. I tried to cover the mic, but that dog. I love my dog. He'll defend us. He's great, but
yeah,
he jumps on the fucking window.
Yeah, he does.
We all heard it.
And now we've all lived it. So this next clip that we threw in here, I had to include. This was probably the most. God, I wish I could put a GIF in here for my reaction of just what? It was one of those what? WAT, what? Kind of moments. This was a great guest. I loved having her on the show, Megan Long, aka Largemouth Sass, and Megan and I have been chatting back and forth on Instagram for a bit, and I had been really, really, really trying to sort of convince her that you should definitely be on the show. Let's talk fishing. I'd love to get your stories, whatever they might be. And she threw me the biggest curveball with this question that I gave to her. It took a bit of a turn. I'm just going to jump in and play it. So I got a question I've never asked anybody before, but just because so you're in Louisiana, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the gator situation like? Because I've never had the chance to talk with another angler that's got, gators as part of life. In my mind, it scares the shit out of me,
No, wait, for real?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Hippos are the scariest that you have to worry about.
What?
I mean, we don't have hippos.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Where there are, it's scary.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, so the gators really aren't a problem.
Yeah.
I haven't had really bad experiences with them, but recently, it was a little small gator. He was probably about 3 foot, and he kept coming up to the boat, and he just wanted whatever we had.
Oh yeah.
So he must have been fed before. So if they're being hand fed, they're going to bother you. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, for the most part, these gators are not gonna bother you. But if you go in their territory while they're mating,
that's what I've heard. It's
insane. It's like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
If you go close to them, like in a boat or a kayak or something, the way that they growl, it just vibrates the boat, and it's so loud. It's insane. It's really insane. It's like from a movie.
That just blows my mind.
Crazy.
Because it's a dinosaur. It really is. That's the one thing. I see YouTube fishermen from Alabama, like Lojo. He's another good one. And I'm like, I couldn't fish down there regularly and not, at least have it in the back of my mind. This could end badly.
Usually with top water, they'll get in your area a little bit, but
okay.
I've never accidentally hooked on one. So they don't really you always know when they're coming after you.
Yeah. That was interesting because up until that point, I really wasn't throwing much out there for follow-up questions. And I don't know what it was. I think we were just talking about her being from Louisiana, and in my mind immediately went to like, well, you got to deal with gators. I'm going to go there. And so I figured she was, honest to God, I assumed that there was going to be some kind of like it's like a rite of passage. You just have like a situation where you hook into a gator and you're like, oh shit, something along those lines. And then she flipped it on hippos, and I was just like, what?
I think she's guilty of doing what I do with, unfortunately, some regularity. Your thoughts are moving one speed and your lips are moving another. And
I'm guilty of that as well.
I think the missing sentence that got lost in the middle of that freeway between the brain and the mouth was, at least we're not in Africa where we have to deal with hippos.
Yeah, of course.
That would have solved the whole problem right there. But I get it, Sass. I'm with you. And just so you know, that smooth comment we made on the last clip, she had posted a video of her setting a hook.
Yep.
I believe in a tournament. I think it was a tournament. Well, she had posted a video and she put some smooth jazz in the background. Mm-hmm. And I had sent her a text saying, yeah, smooth hook sets on Largemouth Sass Radio or something like that. Oh no, I know what it was. It was here on Largemouth Sass Radio, the hook sets are as smooth as jazz.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
like that.
I'll tell you
she
what.
She didn't get it at first. I'm like, you got to put a soundtrack up.
So she has amazing taste in music. Out of anybody who we have had on the show, I think was it her I started asking about what people listening to while they're out there. It might have been. It was right around that time of the year when I had started asking that question about what people are listening to, what gets them hyped up, and we had a conversation that went even further than the podcast recording about music. And she recommended a bunch of amazing artists, and then I would go back and recommend some more, and it was just great going back and forth. I gotta throw this out there. She listens to a lot of Limp Bizkit.
Well, I was going to give her a lot of credit.
I can't.
Louisiana and say, you got all that jazz and blues down there and all sorts of shit. And really, Limp Bizkit?
I've seen many times, and I'm like, yeah, I can't, And she's like, I don't know. I will say this: her tastes in music are as equally as wide as mine, and that is saying something. Like, that is absolutely saying something. I bust her chops all the time about Limp Bizkit. I can't do it myself. I lived it the first time, and I know she's got a thing for the gray-haired Durst. So it's all good. It's all good. Megan, we love you. You're awesome. We appreciate you. This is one of your picks, Sean.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I'm just going to dive right in because it's short and sweet, but God, it says so much.
It sounds, but it's beautiful. Like it's a really high quality sound.
Yep.
I mean, the wood that those speakers are made of, you don't see that shit anymore. I don't know what forest in Bavaria those speakers were made in. The wood came from, but my God,
little Smurfs are handcrafting loudspeakers in like the Black Forest somewhere.
It was definitely made with Smurf labor.
Clearly, that was fantastic. How many fishing podcasts take you down that road?
I don't know. Honestly, I think you had said something about that, and that's why I went back and investigated it. But that was just an example of the way you and I work.
Yeah.
With going on tangents, and 1 minute we're talking Chronic Trips tournament, the next minute we're talking Bavarian Smurfs making speakers.
I do feel like there's going to be a Black Forest Smurf inspired T-shirt. We're obviously not. God, I don't want to go to court.
Metal Smurf.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Wearing lederhosen, not the traditional Smurf stuff, and maybe we'll change the color. Instead of being blue.
None of that. No, he'll wear corpse paint and have spikety gauntlets on his arms.
Perfect. Done deal. Done deal. Like Legion of Doom.
No, like a black metal guy. Yeah.
I love it. No, that was a really good one. This next clip is from an interview that we did with Andrea Navolo, Blonde Angler on Instagram. This was I think was like the first interview I had done Where I hadn't, like, this was one of the very first interviews I had done where the guest was not somebody directly from my own circle. Like, I had gotten in there, not somebody I had fished with before or anything. Yeah, this is right after we had this. So yeah, it was the second time. Bill from Hookside Hoodlums was the very first interview with somebody I had just met through doing the podcast. And then Andrea was the next one. But Andrea's episode took off. And it really did. It was, for a long time, it was the most listened to episode for quite a while. And this was a clip right here that Sean had chosen from this, where we talk a little bit about wake baits and smallmouth. So I'm going to dive right in.
Let's talk gear. There was a post that I saw on your Instagram when you were talking about being asked about your favorite lure. And there was a wake bait that you had indicated that was in there. It's got a prop on the rear. I forget who makes it.
Oh, that's the Depths Buzz Jet.
That's what it was. Yes, Depths.
Yep.
Okay.
Man,
is that still like one of your favorites?
Yeah, for certain types of fishing, it's, to me, it's like one of those baits that you use during the summer months. It's a wake bait, so it literally just like swims right below the surface.
Yep.
So when these bass are hitting top, in the early mornings or early, or late in the evenings, I should say, just to get that bait to swim right below the surface above these weed edges is deadly. It's crazy.
It's funny. I've recently started experimenting with wake baits specifically because I feel that they sort of sit right at the perfect level.
Yep.
And they're natural, I mean,
they're
natural. They really, really work. I have one that I've thrown a bit, and I had a mishap at one of my last outings where I had cast it 2 or 3 times out in this one lake that I like to fish. And I had, third or fourth cast, I got snagged in a tree, and I go and I'm like, I got 50-pound braid on this line. I'm getting this back. I'm not worried. So I'm trying to finesse it out of the tree. I get it, and it does that. It comes flying back like a shot. And I couldn't have done this again if I tried. But the wake bait hit my rod, almost like a bunt in baseball.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, we're good. No sweat. Bait's okay. That's what I assumed. Next cast, I go to load up the rod and cast. Rod snaps. I couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So,
oh no.
Yeah, that was not fun. But yeah, I saw that. I was just like, all right, cool. I'm not out of my mind. I just was something about a wake bait. And then I saw that even that color looks awesome. It was like a bluegill color.
Yeah, that was the perch color. That's literally during the summer months, that's one of my go-to baits. It's incredible. I'm not really big on wake baits in general, but that one just seems to do the trick. And it has just such an extreme wobble to it and action to it that the smallmouth especially just can't resist it.
They just crush it, huh?
Yep.
That's awesome. What about, aside from that, what are you feeling now, especially with smallies?
Oh man, so I went out today and I did pretty well with the smallmouth, and it's really depending on who you talk to, what body of water you're fishing. Some guys are still killing it on a jerkbait. I did really well on a chatterbait today. I find that crankbaits, square bill crankbaits are excelling right now. I caught a really a good pile of smallies this week on a chatterbait. I mean, you could throw those up shallow. You could throw them deep. They have a tendency to really get through the grass good. It's just such a versatile bait for this time of year.
Definitely. I just got turned on to a brand new chatterbait from leadfreejigs.com.
Oh, okay.
And it's probably, especially for the price, the most reactive chatterbait. The second you start cranking that reel, you've got the action. And I couldn't believe it. I'm blown away. I got to reorder.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that yet. I'm really open to trying some different brands of chatterbaits. Z-Man kind of rules the the world with chatterbaits, I feel like. And now that new jackhammer that they put out this past year just is just killing the market. So I have a couple of those on order. I haven't even gotten any in my hands yet, but I'm looking forward to trying those throughout the year.
That was a great interview. I was really Yeah. I was really nervous when I did that interview. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I don't want to look like a clown.
You know? Oh, you did fine.
Yeah,
you did fine.
I was, and the reaction to that episode was fantastic, and Andrea's great. I mean, absolutely fantastic. She's killing it as always. Good stuff. I think that my wake bait theory holds true too, because I have caught some of my biggest fish this year on a wake bait on the BBZ Rat. I mean, sized up from what I was throwing before, but yeah, I think it actually does hold true.
It's funny. I've had all my wake bait success in Minnesota. I just, for whatever reason, I can't get them to bite them here, and I don't know why that is.
That's interesting.
Another year, I got those rats, so we'll be good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So this next one is so good. So there's no words to set this up.
There's a gentleman in my life that I've fished with for 30 years that has been the biggest single influence on my fishing techniques, tactics, everything to do with fishing. This guy, I have to give him credit that he has been that close of a mentor and a friend. We met 30 years ago in high school, and I'm not going to drop his real name, but I would like to tell today the origin of his name, the Dude Bud. So we were in high school. I want to say it was freshman or sophomore year. He had come up to myself and a group of friends standing around a locker. And I remember one of us asking, "Hey man, what'd you do this weekend?" Or "What were you doing next weekend?" Whatever question it was pertaining to his activities. And his response was very simple.
Dude, bud, fuck, hey, bud, dude, fuck. Dude, bud, fuck, hey, bud, dude, fuck. Dude, bud, fuck, hey, bud, dude, fuck.
And he walked away. We were all left absolutely dumbfounded. I remember somebody in the group saying, "What did that guy just say?" So from then on, he earned the nickname,
the Dude Bud.
So that was the first one where I started messing with pitch.
Yep.
For that. And I once that kind of happened, it was just game over. But I remember hearing that story for the first time. We were both on kayaks. We were fishing at Redbridge. And you were telling me, like, we're just sharing all these stories, getting caught up. You had just kind of gotten involved with the podcast at this point, and you're sharing this story. And I'm just like, this is freaking gold. Like, this needs to be part of it. So I was really happy when the Dude Bud series kind of kicked off, and we could kind of bring that in, because this is good stuff right here.
Yep, and he is still out there doing his thing, and he's got an eyebrow raise that there's going to be some Western Mass fishing going on this year. So we may hear or see from the Dude Bud. I can't make promises because the Dude Bud does not listen to anyone.
No, the Dude Bud abides.
Yeah, that's right. He does his thing, but he may, you never know. He's very happy we named a jig color after him. I'll tell you that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, does he tournament fish already?
No, I think the last time he tournament fished was with me well before kayaks. Let me think about this. I think I had my first recreational kayak at this point, and I was looking for some sort of tournament to get into with that, and all the online stuff hadn't come up yet. This was years ago. This was at least 10 years ago.
Yep.
And he and I had jumped into one of his canoes and fished with a 14-foot plus. It was a 14-foot canoe. It's a big canoe.
Yeah.
And it was one of those 14-foot plus. You could have a bass boat. You could have a John boat. As long as you had a live well, you could fish it. So we threw a cooler.
Oh, yeah.
In the middle of this thing, and we went to what I consider one of the most dangerous lakes in Massachusetts with all the sunken timber. I always compare the one open part of it to the spike pits from Indiana Jones movies.
Really? That bad?
You go, yeah, it's because the wind pushes the water over these things for forever, however this reservoir was made. And it just, they've just ground down into spikes. So if you go in, you're getting skewered. Like, it's bad. And we went on this thing, and the day we fished, it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. We were blown all over that lake. We almost capsized at the launch when we got back. It was bad. Like, we left early. I was like, F that.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I think the Dude Bud and I fished in any sort of organized tournament outside of, screwing around with our friends.
Gotcha. Do you think he's going to be involved with the MAKB West Trail?
I don't know. I don't. I've told him about it. Well, it's his decision.
If he does, and I'm just throwing this out there for the Dude Bud, I cannot wait to do the angler profile episode for the Dude Bud. I'm just saying. I imagine it will be full of all of the. I don't even know what to compare it to. I don't know what's going to do it justice, but I'm just saying this will be my stairway to heaven.
My recommendation would be maybe if you're going to approach the dude bud in an interview, it might be he's relatively soft spoken. Believe it or not.
This won't be an interview. Yeah. It will not be an interview. This will be a feature documentary. This will not be an interview. This will be yeah.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
We see the dude bud in his natural habitat as he's slaying the bass. You know, it'll be. This will be something.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, it will be. Yeah. I'm just saying. We'll see what happens. You know. Let's go ahead and.
We will see, won't we? We will see.
This one's actually pretty recent too. This clip here is fairly recent. This is also an Easter egg, and I want to throw out there a little something that one of our listeners was so dedicated that they went and re-examined a portion of this. Let's see if you can figure out what it is. We still managed to polish a turd. If nothing else, we have polished a turd for you guys, and we're giving you the best that we've got as always. So,
hey, Bobby, hold on. I can't let that go. Start over again. That was awful. We can't say we're polishing a turd for our podcast. That sucks. That is the most negative shit. That's the most negative shit I've ever heard you say. Come on, we can do better than fucking that. Hey, here's your turd. Suck on it. No, that's fucking awful. Why don't we just come back from break and be like, hey, here we are. Why the fuck are you listening? Can we start seriously?
Good news, folks. This is the end of the podcast. You've reached the end of it. Good job. You made it this far. Hope you're fucking proud of yourself. End.
Buy our shit.
All right. Here we go.
Listen, keep that one around because that is a... That's a fucking.
That might be an Easter egg. That might be.
That's an Easter egg.
I won't delete it. I'm gonna leave it. So I agree. Yeah.
So that was obviously some late night editing by you. But what I remember about that was we had done. What we usually do is we record an intro. And we record an outro, and you always talk to the guests, usually at an earlier date. So, like I said, I never listen to the guests until they're actually played on the released podcast, the finished deal. So we had done whatever intro we had done that day, and then you just came right back with that. We went, usually we do the intro, we go get coffee or take a leak or whatever we got to do when we come back, and you had done that.
Yep.
And I was like, what the fuck? No, now it makes you like you're shitting on the guest, you're shitting on us. What the fuck? Was it bad coffee? What happened there?
I don't know what it was. I had gotten up on the wrong side of the bed that day. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something about it like, geez, I think, actually, so there's one thing I want to kind of mention is, and you can hear it in that clip. Do you hear the change in the audio from that clip to like the segment with Andrea? Going back that early?
I mean, I know the audio changed, but I think...
Yeah, so there was a big change in production that happened at that point. I had been EQing things one way, and I've been leaving our tone a little bit more rich and a little bit more natural. That probably started in like the end of October. I had to dial some things in. It was where we really kind of changed hardware. For what we were recording on and the way I was editing. So I kind of had changed some things. I used to kind of like cut frequencies to kind of make it a little bit more clear and clean sounding, but I decided to leave some of this, more of the natural. I've changed the points where I clip some of these frequencies basically is where it is. And I think it overall, it sounds a little bit more polished this way. But that clip I thought was fantastic. And again, that was one of those where I was just like, no, we're going to play around with some stuff. There's in there, I can see 3 samples that I would like to cut and utilize like we utilize, all of the certain sound. I think I used almost every sound effect except this one in that that Easter egg. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But there's some things in there that I want to hang on to, that I want to utilize for later things. I think it could just be great.
That little clip might be viewed as you having a complete editorial mental breakdown and content breakdown, because you're calling it a turd. You're hitting every goddamn sound effect button you can reach.
There is a little homage to another podcast that was my first actual podcast that I had ever done. This is probably like 2015, 2016, called Western Massholes. And we often would throw, like, just because, when you're producing a podcast, you hit record and you record all the stuff. And there's certain stuff that you're going to cut out because you're just, bantering or bullshitting about whatever. And what I would do is I'd take the end of that stuff, and oftentimes what I would do is I will throw it in at the end. So that for us, that's how the Easter eggs came in. But there's also a secondary homage in there to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you watch It's Always Sunny, at the end when they have the billboards at the end of the production companies involved and everything, the one that comes up with the picture of Charlie Mack and Dennis standing up against like what looks like I guess it's a brick wall or something. They're standing up against there, and there's an audio clip that's backwards. And what it is just random, like, gibberish. They just kind of say whatever, and they loop it backwards. And back when I was working in television, I actually used to, when It's Always Sunny was syndicated, I would take that and go back and listen to them, and some of them are ridiculous. They'd be like, "How now, brown cow?" And they would just, like, flip it around backwards. So that's what I did with that. And one of our listeners, I think it was Nick, the Deer Slayer, he had Roadkill Nick. He had gone so far, and he actually downloaded the episode and flipped it around and go like, "Yeah, well, that's 10 minutes. I'm never gonna get back." Just like it wasn't worth doing, but it was pretty cool. Yeah, so Polishing Turds, that's what that one's named. It's great. Now I have these clips that I can just access for other things. So some of these clips are going to start getting a little bit longer. Not so much this one any longer than what we've got, but we've got a couple of heavy ones coming up for the very end of the show. We place them there, not because they're not important, but because they're so lengthy. So if you guys want to kind of like skip through them or listen a little bit more quickly, you can, but just as a heads up. This next clip came up, and this was one for me where I had, this is when I interviewed Todd Grubb. And what's great about Todd is that I had reached out to Todd about doing this podcast, and I wasn't really expecting, him to like jump onto it or be anything, but I was a fan of his channel. I can remember when I discovered his channel, it was probably about a year previous, maybe. I had started kind of checking it out, and I absolutely love like the natural feel of a lot of Todd's stuff. In fact, his early videos, he used to do just fail videos of like compilations of like, where he'd be out and like shit just went wrong, and he would put these things together. And I thought it was so cool because you weren't just seeing the finished product. You were seeing like the road to get there. And I want to throw this out there now. Todd put out a video. Was it last night or might have even been the night before? But very, very recently, right around Christmas, he put out a video that I feel is a throwback to like some of his older stuff. And it's not clickbait. If you're looking at it, it's the one where he's ice fishing and he gets arrested. It's not clickbait. He did actually get arrested. He talks about it, gets into like all the details toward there. But it was fantastic because it was one of these things where like there was shit going wrong. When they were doing a catch and cook at the end, like the oil you could see was just smoke billowing off of it. Way too hot to fry these fish and have them turn out ideal, and it was old school fishing with grubs. And I enjoyed it last night, and I think you will too. So go and check out his channel. So let's check out this one. This is about fishing grubs and his production standards. I mentioned that you're a YouTuber, but tell me a little bit about the history of fishing in your life. Like, how did you discover fishing? How was it sort of like instilled in you to like, how did that passion start? And then what was the road like getting to where here you are producing content on a regular basis for YouTube?
It started, I guess, as a little kid. My dad used to take me, but he wasn't a huge part of my life. So when he kind of, went away, I didn't really fish too much at all.
Yep.
But being near or around water was always something that was instilled in me. My grandfather had a pool in the backyard, and I was never not in the water.
Yeah.
So when I picked up a rod and reel, it's almost like 4 years ago now.
Oh,
it was
okay.
immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was immediate. Like I'd been wanting to do it for a while, you know. Anything outdoors always gets me going. So I was hooked, pun intended, immediately. And I started going in my off time all the time.
Yep.
And then, summer ended and the fall hit and the bite really changed, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So like any normal human being nowadays, I hopped onto YouTube to try and see what I should do to get some bites. And I found a bunch of people, fishing and making ridiculous content. And I was like, after a little while, I was like, oh man, I can do that. And then, winter hit and I stopped fishing for a little bit because it got really, really tough and I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh yeah. And
ice fishing was about to start, and a buddy of mine was like, you want to come out and ice fish? And I was like, it'd be awesome. So we went out ice fishing and I caught my personal best. It was my first bass over 4 pounds.
That's awesome.
And it was just one of those moments in life where I was like, I want to fish like for a living if I can.
Yeah.
I want to make this my life. So I also have a background in film and video. I took 2 years of film class in high school. So I just like every day watching these videos, I'd be like, man, I could do that. And so eventually I just decided, I'm going to go for it. And, I love making content, and it turned into like a whole different thing. Like at first it was, more like, oh my God, I want to just fish every day. And then it became like meeting people and traveling and just doing things that I never thought I'd be doing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because of fishing. It's my whole perspective on what I thought this was going to be when I started as to what it is now a few years down the road. It's like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm super thankful.
It's infectious. It's like you get into it, and like we live in this time right now where information is all around. And I'm glad you brought up your production background, because I probably only discovered your channel like maybe a year, maybe it was last summer or last spring, something like that. It wasn't too long ago, but when I saw it, I'm like, see, I have a TV background. So I was like, oh, this guy is putting together some legit stuff. Like, I'll tell you what, so, just not for nothing, but like when you're transition in between different edits, that little static effect that you use, I'm like, that's genius. It's fast. It just gets right to it. And it's different enough. Like it's really, really great, and you do all that production on your own?
Yes, I do everything.
Man, good, great. You're killing it. Great job. Seriously.
Thank you.
That was a really good interview right there. It was one of those first ones where I walked away. I was like, first off, I had a great time interviewing that guy, and it felt like a real natural conversation. Sometimes you just talk to these guests and it is a natural conversation. Other times, you talk to guests and they're a little bit more of a just nodding the head and and sort of getting to the question and not really like running with it, where you're having this relationship with dialogue where your questions and answers kind of go together and there's a natural ebb and flow with it. That one was fantastic. I like that one a lot. Plus, I've had the opportunity to get together with Todd a couple of times and get out there and fish. And he's always just been a great dude, like really, really great. We've had lots of conversations via DM on Instagram, and I'm really proud of him for like the shit that he's managed to do this year. From, I remember seeing a video right when COVID had kind of started before Jigs and Bigs had gone, where he had stopped putting out a lot of content and then had just sort of like disappeared for a little bit during that first initial quarantine period. And you didn't really hear anything from him. And there was some, some drama, and he kind of got back into it and was like, I'm really looking forward to making some more fishing content. We're going to go ahead and make this happen. And he got right back on it and started putting out some really good content. And the growth from like back then, when I was like, wow, man, this is a really great channel that has this major hiccup. Like, we'll see how this is going to work. And then he's just like absolutely killing it. Now he's a mate on a party boat. He's doing he's got the Yamamoto deal going, which is huge. I mean, he's really accomplished a lot. Plus, the growth on his social stuff is just huge. So Todd, congratulations. 2020 was a rocky road, but like I feel like he fits in that group like with us, where you look at this last year, and while it was rough in a lot of ways, like there was this one sort of thing that kind of made it amazing. So that's why I wanted to make sure to throw that one in here, because it was a great interview, but also like it kind of parallels our sort of journey as far as the growth of this podcast and everything else with like what he's kind of gone on and done. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I have to talk and work out the details, but I am trying to work out some type of a charter for listeners where we can get together on the boat, on the party boat that Todd works on, and go out and do some deep sea fishing, or go out and either catch some tog or some cod or whatever is on the agenda. I think it'd be a whole lot of fun.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm down.
Yeah,
and yeah, there was a lot on that interview that I could have pulled from. I just thought that part was just kind of stood out a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That interview is good. Anybody who wants to get into the podcast, there's a good jumping on point. Jump on with the Todd interview.
Oh, absolutely. That was, I think it was just overall, it was a fun interview to do. It was one of those interviews where, I mean, that was kind of like maybe sometime in July, maybe late June or July sometime, we had recorded that. That was an interesting kind of spot. This next clip, I think is your, like, this is when Sean the Fisherman truly kind of, welcome to the world of being a podcaster, my friend. That's what this is.
What is it?
This is the Veterans Day special. The Veteran special. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. This was really good. And this was Sean's baby. He came to me with this idea, said he would like to go for it and do it. And I said to him, absolutely. And I think I was the one that was just like, as somebody who hasn't, who has no military experience, I would be entering this interview from a very limited standpoint, so I think that this is yours. Like, you got to go ahead and do it. And you did an amazing job. A fantastic coordinating the guests, like getting all this stuff together. You did a fantastic job. So we've got a clip here. It's a little bit of a long one, but it's definitely worth it. Check it out and listen to. This is the roundtable for Veterans Day. That not even that long ago, a little over a month ago, we did this, wasn't it?
Well, no, we did it. We did it at the end of September.
That's right. You're right. We recorded. It was the first week of October.
It was October. We recorded the first week of October because the Chronic Trips was going on.
The episode was like a month later, I think.
And this was the day where you were freaking out about the fish donkey. So there was stuff going on in the background, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we recorded that segment after. Oh my God! Like the pieces are falling together.
That was the day I bashed Andy's boat. Sorry, Andy.
I think it's okay. I think he's going to be all right.
That was a linchpin day in the Jigs and Bigs history.
It really was. So check this one out. I also want to throw out here that this clip is the first time we had ever done an outdoor live recording. So we were working with a lot of things that we had never really experienced before. So check it out and give it a listen.
We're here to talk a little bit about our experiences as veterans and how they've lined up with our outdoors activities, particularly for most of us, it's fishing. Joe, I know you hunt, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna go around and kind of talk about how being a veteran, how our military service has affected the time we've spent out on the water or in the woods, and honestly, vice versa, how we've gone out and become outdoorsmen, and that has driven us in our professional careers to get the job done and make sure we're good to go, even if it means staying late. We've all done active duty time, I believe, and we know that sometimes there's no clock. It's just when the job's done. So I'd like to start with Joe.
Okay.
Joe, so where did your two worlds meet? Where did the military and your outdoors worlds, where did they meet? How they affected each other?
Man, so when I first came in 2002, December, I was big in outdoors with my dad. We talked about that, and in the beginning of my military career, it kind of affected me being outdoors kind of in a negative way, because being a young airman at the time, I wanted to go to all the trips I possibly could go on, constantly traveling. And a lot of places I was going to, I didn't have that option of bringing a rod reel and all that. A little bit into my career, I kind of had some sense knocked into me, and I was like, well, I gotta start bringing rods. Or one of my trips, a couple of my trips, I would just run down to Walmart and grab a $30 combo and I would just leave it there if I had to. But it's done a lot in the aspect of like we said, I hunt as well, so I've learned a lot of stuff outdoors wise, like all of us probably have, and I bring that, whether it's navigation, land navigation, anything like that, I bring that into the woods with me. And I have had the opportunity to fish some really cool waters when I finally was able to do so. And in the Midwest and the South, like I've talked about on the podcast before, I got to do some shark fishing down in Key West, hit some waters down in Missouri, and so it's I guess the traveling aspect, hit some waters I typically may not be able to. It's kind of where they've met.
I think all of us have tried to get out at different bodies of water, and I do want to pivot right now over to Wild Bill. Before we started this, as we were waiting for Brett to get in on the meeting here, I mentioned to Wild Bill that this is all his fault. So I'm going to tell you why. So about maybe, was it a month ago, Bill? We had you had posted on Facebook a picture from one of your deployments of you with a fishing rod at a certain deceased despot's palace holding a carp. Obviously, there's things we can and can't talk about, but please.
No, we're not worried about offending suicide bombers. So that okay. So I know the post you're talking about. That was when I was in Iraq. I was in that picture was taken in. Anyone who's familiar, Camp Victory, which is like a huge base, FOB over there, forward operating base.
Combat fishing.
Yeah. So there's like ponds behind Saddam's old palace, and they're stocked. I don't know what else is in there, but I know there's a lot of carp. So somebody from a past deployment had probably done the same thing, had some cheap spinning setups sent over there. So taking A-rats, I think I put some popcorn chicken on a hook and caught a couple suicide bomber carp. I have videos somewhere. I got to find those. But yeah, any excuse, right, to hook up. So
yeah, those carp will eat anything. Yeah. And I had seen that, and that kind of got my mind working. Of number one, with all of us that are together, whether it's the fishing report, whether it's Old Glory sponsorship, whether it's we're always fishing with you guys with the Hookside Hoodlums. I started thinking about, well, who else has been deployed? Who else are veterans in our extended family here? And then, I talked with Brett when he and Bobby and I went fishing up in the Berkshires. Obviously, having worked with Andy on base, I knew he was, and then we advertised that Old Glory is a veteran-owned business. So I was very glad we could all get together and do this. And I thought about this. I gave this a lot of thought. Like, I thought this was a great idea to do on Veterans Day, or for a Veterans Day podcast. You guys know that I worked veteran services for a couple years, up to last year, actually up until the coronavirus hit. This is definitely a page out of that book, where any visibility we can get on those of us that have served, have been overseas, I try to do it, and that's kind of ingrained in me at this point. So up next, Brett, talk to us. What do you got? Tell us about the military. Tell us about fishing. Tell us about hunting, because I know you're probably in between your schoolwork and your new job sharpening arrowheads, right?
Yeah, paychecks haven't really been rolling in yet, so I can't afford new arrowheads just yet, but I'm trying to get there.
Well, you're sharpening arrowheads for other people for change then. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I served, I was in 8 years altogether in the National Guard. So when it comes to fishing and hunting and the military, it kind of had an effect, kind of not. My biggest thing was I got activated a lot A lot. My stepdad served in the National Guard for 10 or 12 years. My father served for about 10 years. And between the two of them, I think I have double the amount of activations that they do. And that usually put a big hamper on fishing and hunting, because it's like, bow season's coming around, and all of a sudden, a hurricane hit New York City. Sorry, you got to go. And I'd have to take off for a week or 2 weeks and go do my thing down there. But it definitely, having that, part-time thing, but also having to drop what I'm doing as soon as something happened and take off for who knows how long, it definitely made me appreciate the time a lot more that I had, even if it's just getting on a shoreline for an hour or two after work or something. It definitely made me appreciate that a lot more, being able to have what little free time I did.
That's awesome. I think that's definitely a feeling that most of us can relate to. I know for myself, I did a number of deployments in the early 2000s, and then after that, most of my deployments were CONUS, so I was able to bring a fishing rod, and I made sure after the first one, I kind of got the idea down. So I was packing breakdown rods into my luggage, and I had some great times deploying to smaller bases with some of the work I did. But on the side, I would get out of work when we were done for the day and turn around, and then one week in the summer of I can't remember, 2012 maybe. I was wading the Shenandoah River for smallmouth, and then there was another early spring tour where I found a small state park in Delaware, and I spent, I think, every afternoon there. It wasn't military, but again, with the travel, and I was still in. I mean, the amount of time I spent in Oklahoma and the fishing I did there, Nebraska, I was there. I mean, Texas, you name it. I've been everywhere to fish in the Midwest, and I learned to appreciate that and learned to make the most of the time I was on the road while in the United States. I mean, obviously some of my deployments to the desert, I couldn't fish. There was no water. So, but yeah, I completely understand. You're gone for X amount of time, and when we were in the desert, the joke was, what do you want to do after work today? Well, let's go fishing or go to the bar. Well, there's neither. Ha ha. Let's not talk about this again.
Should have been there.
Not all of us could catch carp. All right, Andy, talk to us. What do you got?
Well, first off, I want to give a shout out to my son, who was in the Navy. He just recently got out, and also a fellow fisherman. He just got out recently, picked up himself a bass boat. So solid fisherman. He's been fishing his whole life and most of mine. And my wife as well, 14 years Army, and also proud fisherwoman. So, but so I've been places where I never ever thought I would be in my life, and been able to go, hey, let's go fishing. I went to Diego Garcia. We didn't have a lot of work. We didn't have a lot of time away from work. But this place is so remote that they even, import the locals, and that's not a joke. But we were able to get out there, do a little fishing out there in MWR, and the little guy that was, I say little guy because I think hardly any of them come up to the top of the gunnels on these boats, but the guy goes out there, he rigs you up, puts you out there, throws a line in the water. 5 minutes later, fish on. Fish off. It was like that fast, and then we get small craft warning, had to turn back around and go in and go back to work. But we were out there, and again, while I was out there, I took a moment and the closest land is 1,400 miles away, like mainland, and the second closest is 1,600 miles away. This is not something I'm going to do if I weren't in the military, and fishing with you out in Oklahoma. And I was living out there, and I was working out there before, and it is quite an experience to be able to do those things. And if it weren't for the military, I certainly would not be where I am today, and obviously sitting here with you guys. Yeah, it definitely affects a lot of people's lives for the better if they look at it the right way.
Yeah, it's making the most out of wherever you're sent. That's really what, for those of us that have really been around, making the most out of wherever you're stationed, wherever you're deployed to is so huge, because you can sit around and mope, when you're off hours, like, I got nothing to do, or I don't feel like, I mean, at this point, reading a book or playing a video game and you're going to the gym or whatever, but there's a lot of positive to really making the most of where you're at. And if you're able to fish or hunt, I mean, it's great. It is really fantastic. Bill, were you able to fish anywhere else? Any other deployments?
No. So
you fish the Palace, you're pretty much done.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was my mountaintop.
He quit fishing after that. There's no reason to anymore.
Yeah. I came out of retirement just for today, but I'm going back in an hour. No. So actually, I didn't fish much at all throughout them. I did 8 years in the Army, most of which in the time in the reserves. So I had my regular professional life, my job and family stuff, but much like what Brett said, the reserves, I was sent all over the place all the time. So if I had the opportunity to fish, I can't recollect it now. Like, I mean, I never took advantage of that opportunity anyway, if I did have it. I fished growing up, all my childhood, and obviously I slowed down a little bit in high school. And then when, I'll tell you, when it really picked back up was coming back from overseas. I guess those things are, they correlate now, but I maybe didn't realize that at the time. But coming home and not saying like, I had no problem coming back, but I'm saying coming home and just finding that's something that's like familiar. We do a million things in our life, right? But that's probably been the one thing that's been consistent throughout my life. So that kind of like, like your center or something like that. And then, of course, now it's just with you people and stuff like that. It's just you find people with common interests and addictions like fishing. So, it's been very consistent and, no breaks since then. But I think that was like more of like a coming home and going back to familiar territory type of thing.
That was a really good clip. Had to leave it in there because there's so many great stories from fantastic folks and friends of the show. And I love the way I love the way that Bill kind of wrapped it up around there. And he's like, yeah, when you come back home, fishing in the outdoors is like that consistent that you can kind of relate to and make a connection to that's familiar when you're back and you're living, a civilian life,
Yep. And I chose that clip because that was the one segment out of everything where everybody got in on.
Yeah.
Some of the other segments, there was some back and forth that maybe, one or more of the participants didn't get in on, but everybody was in on that one. I said, you know what? That was the one that also set the stage for the rest of the show. And you could tell, I think we're all, I'm nervous a little bit as a, as a podcast host on that, because I've never done anything like that. Mm-hmm. And then you could tell everybody else is kind of easing into that conversation. So I think the beginning of it did sound a little tighter, but we all loosened up a couple segments later. But like I said, not everybody got in on every other segment. So it was, this one I thought was important to put up with everybody participating. So
exactly, man.
And it captured it. It answered that. That was the first question I thought of when I kind of came up with this whole thing. And I think that was the running theme of that one. So it was good. It was awesome. And thank everybody again for participating. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was it was a great episode all around. But you're right. Like you were saying before we started that clip, that was a crazy day. That entire day was just absolutely insane. Like that hit, we ran that with our interview the first Ken. Time we had Ken on the show. But we recorded that early on. It was the first weekend in October, and it was during that Chronic Trips tournament, and we had gone and fished. We got there for sunup, and then went out and fished all day, and then about noontime or so, we decided to call it. And, I remember the wind was crazy. Like the water was just absolutely insane. It was colder than hell for, that time of year. Things were starting to really kind of cool down. And I had like the worst possible day of fishing I have ever had. And, it is what it is. And ultimately that day led to what would be the that episode that followed that weekend was the leading into this is our last clip.
Yeah.
Our last
that day was monumental for a number of reasons, and this was the biggest. This is the one where the infamous therapy session.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Pause. So I have this last clip is giving me a problem. So I'm going to go and reopen the software for it, and I'm going to reload it.
Okay, I'm going to keep mine on mute for a little while because Nelson's supposed to be coming over. I don't want the dogs to go fucking ape shit.
Yeah, that's fine. That's no problem.
Even if they're locked up, they'll go ape shit. That's what they do. It's their jobs.
I just want to fix this. So I loaded it on the other deck and it was fine, and then I tried to just make sure that it wasn't tweaking something. Yeah, it's good to go. All right, cool. All right, so here we go. I had a great weekend, but there was that one point of darkness where I was like, I got to delete this freaking app, man. Because I felt like with such a limited amount of time to fish, and this is what we were talking about before we recorded, with that limited amount of time to fish, I really I don't know that if my mental health can take a monthly tournament per se. And you and I have talked about this a little bit before, but something about this last month and knowing how limited the amount of time is that I've got really, really had an effect on me. And I think it was in the conversation with Debo when I asked him about tournament fishing, and he was just like, yeah, he's like, I don't want to interfere with my release of stress and pressure and have to be concerned with competing. And it kind of like, I don't know if it necessarily, and then actually in the interview for today that you're going to hear with Ellie, when Elise and I were having our conversation, we both agreed. We're like, when we join tournaments, it's a goddamn donation. Like it's a shit show. We go in there and the expectation is like so low because of some of the caliber of the people that we're involved with or that we're competing against. It's just more like for fun. And I think after the conversation, she was speaking about like a day-long tournament versus the only tournaments I've ever done have been these month-long series. And you just carry that weight of that pressure. Like I got to get out and fish and I got to do numbers, or in this case, I've got to change up species. And I don't know that that's necessarily where I want to be per se. So I was like, what do I do? And that's why my decision was, I'm just going to delete, because there were moments where, and I've been on the boat with Tim Jacks, I've been in the kayaks with you, I've been, on the boat with Andy, and I'd hear the donkey, and the first place where my head goes is, son of a bitch. You know what I mean?
Because that's the first place. That's the first place everybody's head goes with that donkey noise, and I love that thing. And I even sent you a text. Was it 2 nights ago? I've been using Tourney X for the bass tournaments I'm in, and it's a really straightforward app. It's no frills. It's good. I like it. And I think when we started this Fish Donkey use, you and I had some conversations about, we were just on the user end, and I think there's some things that we had questions about, et cetera. But now that I'm administering it, like being on the phone with Fish Donkey and their customer support has been phenomenal, and it has started to grow on me.
Bonnie at Fish Donkey is amazing. Like she's answered questions before, because we've talked about doing our own tournaments for the show, and eventually we're going to get there. Where we're going to have our own, tournaments and things like that. And I will say, like, Fish Donkey for that they're really, really helpful. And I don't know, maybe that's because they're relatively a newer company,
Yeah, they're a startup out of Minnesota. So I actually when I was on the phone with them one day while they were working through something, I think it was with the camera issues with the iPhone, which I'll get into in a little bit. They're out of Minnesota. What I noticed was using Tourney X, there weren't a lot of Minnesota tournaments using that. And I said, well,
that's interesting. Land of 10,000 lakes. You would definitely think
the Chronic Trip stuff.
Yeah.
I looked into the number of tournaments in Minnesota, and it was just a lot of their tournaments are being run. So when I talked with Bonnie about that, I said, what's the deal with that? She goes, well, we're a startup and they're using it. And she talked a little bit about some of the walleye circuits that are using it and this and that and the other thing. So that was kind of nice. And then she said, well, you vacation up here, huh? We had talked about that. And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, when next time you vacation, I'll let you know where the good tournaments are. I said, okay. So that was kind of fun.
That's kind of fun.
But as far as like the tournament mentality, I know I've got not a lot, 4 or 5 years more of experience. And I can say this, I used to get really wound up about tournaments too.
Yep.
And I think everybody does when they start. And you got to realize it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Especially with a month long.
That's not the first time that I've heard that from you with these month long tournaments. And you're 100% right. But it's, and I've tried actually this month going in with that mentality. And I was like, okay, cool. It's about the distance. But yeah, go on what you're saying. I guess I wanted to just reference that.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first started tournament fishing, it was a lot of opens on Congamon, and Congamon is a notoriously difficult place to fish for beginners, especially just in the bass circuit, because it gets hammered.
Yeah,
it's deep, it doesn't have a lot of structure, and there's recreational traffic. So if you're starting out there, you're gonna get frustrated whether you know it or not. And there was a long time that I would just do those tournaments and I would just get angry, and then once the online and the monthlies started popping up, whether it was Tourney X through MacB or Kayak Tournaments Online. Excuse me. Yeah. KayakTournamentsOnline.com, which Casey Reed runs out of Virginia. Then I was at that point where I was just out fishing. All right. And then if I caught a big fish, I would get pissed that it wasn't,
in a tournament.
Yeah. So like those monthly tournaments, when you look at it the other way, coming from, a person who's out fishing all the time, you just do what you do, let the cards fall where they may. And then if you get a big fish, those go in.
Yeah.
And I don't sweat anything anymore. It's just, I'm out fishing. I know that, I'm not sweating it, but it affects great example, Saturday. I could have gone on a bass boat. I had first dibs on it. I'm like, no, I'm taking my kayak just to make sure that if I do look, at this lake that I have not had any good luck at, nor have I heard anyone having good luck at it with bass, just in case I hit that one fish that's worth something, I just want to make sure that I can put it in. And it's not, like I've talked about before, I go out every day when I fish with the same set of gear, the same set of expectations. And I know that just in case, and honestly, the same mentality, but I know that just in case that I catch something that's worthwhile, it's going to count. So I don't sweat it. And I'm going to get skunked.
Yeah. It's a part of it. Like there's nothing you can do, it just comes along with the territory. And I mean, you make a really valid point, but to that, I throw out there that and especially actually with you having the record keeping that you do and everything. And I know for you, there's a goal, like to educate your own self with what works and what doesn't, and to gather as much intel as you can to make better decisions long term. I get that. But I guess really it's when you said something about there being, if you catch a fish and you're not in a tournament, that great fish is like, it's almost like it doesn't have value. And
no. Well, no, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's not, I don't want to put words in my mouth. It doesn't have monetary value. So I'll give you a great example. I mentioned last year that when I really got into these monthly tournaments, right, I had a phenomenal 2 weeks to close out July and start August. And I mean, I caught 3 pinfish and a number of 20s.
Yeah.
I what I did was I closed out the July Kayak Tournaments Online tournament in the last 2 days and just killed it.
Yep.
And on top of that, I won the August in the first 2 days of August. It was like 4 days of just punishing two bodies of water with big fish.
Yep.
And what I did was I was just curious, and I said, you know what? I wasn't doing the KBF monthlies last year. And I said, I wonder how I would have finished with those legs, because a lot of the guys do both. And what I did was I cheated myself out of about $500.
Yeah. Because you weren't entered at those times, right?
Yes. Yep. Yes. So what I do is now my budget for the year, when I look at fishing tournaments, I do track my tournament. I know last year Kayak Tournaments Online started with a March, but every April through October, I'm in Kayak Tournaments Online and I'm in the Mass KBF. And there's a lot of guys that do both.
Yeah.
So if you win one, you double dip. Yep. Even if you finish second or third, they pay out, different things. But if you enter one and don't enter the other, the fish that you've caught are monetarily not worth anything that way. So it helps pay for itself with tournament fees. I'm not going to say it's going to cover gas or all your lures or this or that. But
I mean, if you're out recreationally fishing anyway, that's money spent regardless. So it's really kind of hard to factor that kind of cost in there, because if you were going to be fishing anyway, then that's exactly it. I guess my point is like more that I don't see the the value in being entered when I get the level of joy that I want out of fishing in just documenting what I catch and keeping track of that. Like, for instance, I have never in my life gotten frustrated because I didn't catch a fish of a specific caliber until I was in a tournament. Like you know what I'm saying? It was that, like, I could catch nibblers all day and I would be actually legitimately content. You know, I mean, hey, oh yeah, it was a great big numbers day. Awesome. Cause my focus, and I understand this, that there are anglers out there. I've spoken to many that do not tournament fish at all. But they're like, you know, it gets more to like, where you're placing your decisions with what you want to be doing with your time. And I'm not trying to poo-poo tournament fishing at all. Like, I'm just saying that for me, I don't know that doing this monthly tournament like practice is beneficial to my mental health. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really what it gets down to, is that there were a number of times where, like, I've been very public about, well, not very public, but like one of my greatest joys in life is to fish with my buddy Paul. And, you know, as I had mentioned before, Paul just had his surgery for pancreatic cancer, and I can remember him scheduling time to get out and fish with me, and while he was going through chemotherapy, and I was in a tournament, and I was like, this is really shitty. And there were a couple of instances where I was like, leaving my catch board at home. Just because it mattered more to me to just have the experience, whether it's, I mean, and he and I have been skunked more than any couple of guys in the, it's just, we just have that kind of history, you know what I mean? And it's just like, for me, like, sometimes I need fishing to be more about the trip than about the inches.
Yeah. So what I can tell you about with the way I approach it is, you know, the setup, the fishing itself is still where I have a lot of joy. Okay. I love catching. I love catching that trout. I had fun catching those nibblers the other day. I still get a joy out of every time I feel a bump off a lure. Yeah. All right. What is it? The tug is the drug. I still get that every time.
For sure.
Whether it's a 3-inch bluegill or a 30-inch pike.
And I should throw out there too that Saturday, it got to a point where I was throwing baits that you and I discussed would not get hit, and they were getting hit. Like that's part of the reason that was, like, you and I, our first discussion was about, I asked you if it would be a wise decision to throw spinner baits, and it was windy, it was choppier than hell. I figured, screw it. I'm like, I'm just going to throw a spinner bait. We'll give it a shot. And this was within about like that last 30 minutes of fishing, and I was getting bumps on every single bait I threw. And I think that's part of the reason why I was having such a problem, is I was like, why am I not connecting at all? And then it's that whole like, well, shit, this was a 4-hour trip on the water that got you nowhere in that tournament. You know what I mean? And in fact, it actually hung over like a dark cloud over what would have just been, what was already an amazing day with amazing people.
Yeah. So there's
that's
a lot
what my problem is.
There's a lot to unwrap there.
Yeah, there is.
Number one, you said yourself that 4 hours. So we talked before we started recording about this monthly tournament. And I said something, you know, I'm gonna paraphrase myself, but with a monthly tournament, I feel no pressure. All I do is just bring my ruler with me. Yeah, that's it. Yep. That's the pressure is to remember to bring the ruler. And when I get in my truck to go fishing, life vest, paddle, ruler, and make sure my phone's charged. And that's it. That's my mental checklist. I'm a robot about that. I'm not a robot about catching fish, but with a daily tournament, the big skill that any angler has to have, and if you can have every lure, you can have literally every lure ever made in your boat. Let's pretend you're out bass fishing in the Titanic and you have access to every lure.
Every single, a Bass Pro Shop on deck.
Yes. Yeah. You have a barge that you can stop into for any lure. Yep. With every color. If you don't have the ability to read the water, and that comes with experience, every lure in the universe is worthless to you, because you can get out on the water, and if you don't have a place to start and then an adjustment to make, if you need to, you're screwed. That is the biggest skill in competitive fishing. So when you're talking about the stress of having a monthly, I'm a little concerned that maybe you're overthinking it, but you're also, you don't have that experience level. And I overthought it when I would do those individual tournaments. But let me tell you something: when you have an 8-hour window, and you have to read the water, and guys around you are catching massive fish, and you're seeing them do it, you want to talk about stress. I still get that.
Oh, I believe it, but I guess for me, for me the main focal point is that at the end of that 8 hours, that stress is done. You can put it behind you. You don't have to worry about it. So when you go out and you have I said those 4 hours for that one day. Well, let's say there's 4 hours every single week I'm able to get out on the water. And in this case, there legitimately is. It's about 16 hours total I'll be able to put out on the water that I can plan for. The impromptu trips here and there for stuff, that's different. But when you're calculating these times and you're factoring in what you've got, and then you're like, so this is where my progress is. Now, let's say it's 7 days before I'm able to get back out, or even just a couple of days. Well, now I'm still carrying that stress from that. It could have actually even been a great day. It could have been an amazing day. And then I've got that confidence carrying over until such and such a time. But then what happens in that next 2 days if I get an alert that, that fish that I caught, is outdone, has dropped down another point, or now I need it. It's you carry that stress for a longer period of time versus if you're just in it for a day, like just a derby or even a weekender or something, at least you can block it out and kind of say, I'm going to manage the stress that I'm putting myself into. Because let's be honest here. I don't think there is a tournament situation that has an absolute zero stress impact for any tournament angler. I think that there's always something in there,
I don't know. I guess maybe this is my history with competitive athletics, but my thought is with a monthly tournament. I mean, with a daily tournament.
Yep.
You've got those 8 hours, and there's no going back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There's no plus and up. But with a monthly, if you've got let's say you've got 16 hours to fish, and you go 0 for your first 2 4-hour outings, you still got time to put something on the board.
It's true.
And what with the chronic trips one, and why I keep recommending this as a good starting point.
Yep.
For beginning competitive anglers, you go out there, you got every species in the world, right? So let's say the big thing is with anything in life, and now we're going to get into life lessons from Sean the Fisherman, but
buckle up, kids.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, get ready. Have your parents in the room for this one. So, but setting a goal, an attainable goal. If you're a brand new angler and you're stepping into, I know it's different from the can athletes, the can athletes and sponsors, but no, actually it's not. If it's you, what if you said, you know what? I am not concerned with my placing in this tournament, and get that into your head.
I've been saying that since day one.
And start with but you're all over the place too. You're not focusing on, you're not setting a goal of, I want to catch 1 8-inch bluegill, 1 8-inch crappie, 1 8-inch perch, and 1 8-inch largemouth, or make any 4 species. Like, hey, I want to catch 4 of these. That's my goal. Fuck everybody else. That's my goal. Okay. So when I get into these tournaments with these big names, and actually I do want to talk a little bit about the biggest of the big kayak tournaments that just happened this past weekend, a little later on. But when I get into these tournaments, I know that my money might be a donation. I know that I am going into, particularly with the ones out east, I'm going into a lot of unknown waters.
Yep.
If I'm lucky, I fished there before and I might be able to apply some past knowledge, but I know that I am going to have to get out there and read the water quickly. And it makes me feel better that I'm in these monthlies, because with the chronic trips, like last time at Lake Snippatuit out in Rochester, Mass, I was in the largemouth. There's largemouth in there and there's pickerel.
Yep.
I caught a 22-inch pickerel. I was beaten out by by somebody else who caught a 22.5.
Yep.
Or 23, whatever it was. But that 22-inch pickerel went into my NE5 category in the chronic trip. So I was happy. I was fine. I got my ass smoked. I think I finished top 5 there. But it was by a lot. It wasn't like I was close to whoever won. But that was a goal. Like, be competitive, goal reached. I didn't put these undue pressures on myself to win. I was well behind, I think halfway through the day until I went to a deeper part of the lake and went out there and had some luck. But
I should throw out there that I've never had it in my head that I was going to win this. Never.
No, but you've got something in your head with some sort of expectation that might not be realistic for your skill set. So just take it easy. You're a sponsor. You know that, for all intents and purposes, we're covering the tournament, you and I.
Exactly.
We get information out on that. and just roll with that. Just say, okay, we're you put, it's only $25. I mean, really.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I'll enter it every year and then just delete the app. Like for me, every month. I mean, it's just, I know for me, it does not work. It doesn't. Like it's just, and it is what it is. And like, I've gone out and tried to fish for trout. And in fact, I was that's last Saturday, I was throwing what I was throwing and was having follows, just not connecting. Then I started throwing the exact same setup that Andy was throwing and was still not connecting at all, which at that point, we're about to pull the boat up onto the ramp. I can't get out of my own head. And I don't need that as a guy who owns a business, owns multiple businesses, has a family, is his own boss, produces his podcast every single week. I don't need that kind of additional strain. I need fishing to be my release, and I just need to enjoy it. So like I said, I initially I didn't want to even talk about this. I was just going to delete the app and leave it alone, and then and leave it as it was. It's just more about making the decision of how I need to treat fishing for myself, and more be open to the fact that fishing is whatever fishing is to the fisherman.
Yeah. And I get it. And it's something that you and I have talked about this quite a bit. It is fishing. It can be whatever you want. If you don't want to compete, that's great. There's a million, YouTubers and everyday anglers that go out. Oh yeah. But unfortunately with social media, when you see, as a competitive angler, sometimes I'll look at someone's fishing posts and they go beyond, sometimes some of them, and I'm not painting everybody with broad brushes, but they'll go beyond, hey man, I went out and caught a couple of fish and did good, and you get a thumbs up. Yeah. Everyone looks for that instant gratification. Sometimes it turns into downright shit talking. And then competitive anglers, most of us will keep our mouths shut and say, oh, you're so good. Come out and play with the big boys, and yeah.
That's exactly it. There is definitely I'm in this separate tier of angling because I compete and I put myself in a class of these anglers. I mean, I suppose you could even say that just being in there, whether or not you're at the top of the leaderboard, at the end of the tournament or not, you're like, I went up against some of the best, and it is what it was. I will say this though. What's weird? We had a friendly competition in mid-September with Andrew and Bill from Hookset Hoodlums and Delirious Angler, and then Joel from the Hookset Hoodlums Pro Staff. That was one day. We had a measured amount of time, and it was a competition with stakes, actual stakes, And I had a blast that day. I fished for shit. I caught one pickerel all day, and because it wasn't in the species that we were looking for, it didn't matter, I mean, it didn't benefit anybody. Yet at the end of that day, I was so fulfilled in that one challenge. And I think it had to do with the fact that at the end of the day, I knew I brought nothing to the table as far as catching anything that was going to benefit. Like that pickerel in the chronic trips would have been great if it was in October. I mean, I think it measured in at 13, 14. I'm like, would have been helpful.
Yeah. And one of the things that I can say with my own history with competitive fishing, I would do friendly stuff with my friends. And honestly, a couple of times it stopped being friendly, it happens, it escalates. You get friends, just like if you're playing darts in a league with them, or you're playing basketball, you can be, you can have a guy that stood up at your wedding and he stood up at yours. And you know what? If you're playing basketball and you guys are both serious about it, somebody's going to take an elbow, and that's it gets left on the court.
Get pissed, and exactly.
Yeah, but during that time where I really started developing the database I was keeping and really started tracking myself, I would do friendly stuff, but that was where I built my experience and built my confidence, so that I knew that if it was a monthly tournament or a daily tournament I was getting into, I could go out there and at least I had a plan and goals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe you're at that point where you might take 3 years and just write everything down. And then the next thing, 3 years from now, you're like, hey, you know what? I've found that I have a strength in midsummer fishing,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to start measuring myself against others.
Yeah.
To how I'm doing in midsummer fishing. Maybe you have problems in the spring. Maybe you have problems in the fall. I'm being facetious. You know.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing an example out there, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's a development process that every angler needs to go through at their own pace with their own goals.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not where you're at right now is fishing tournaments, but you might be in 5 years. You never know.
That's,
I mean,
and that's what
I'm hanging out with me constantly, and I have.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That insane amount of experience, and I have a completely different perspective on it. Where I want every time I go out on the water, I got sick of getting to a point where I was catching big fish, big New England largemouth, and they didn't mean anything monetarily. Like, wow, I hate it. It wore on me where I would think, what if this fish was in a tournament?
You know what's funny? It's funny when we're talking about catching fish and the value that they have, whether it be monetary value in a tournament or something. For me, like, so my PB currently is 19 3/4 inches, right? You put
which is no fish to sniff at.
No, not at all. You put it first largemouth in this current tournament you put in was a 20. The real like goal for me is to have that fish, a 20 like that, hanging up right here behind me. A replica. That's, to me, that means more than anything else, to the point where I can have replicas of these amazing creatures like hanging up so I can, you know what I'm saying? It's about capturing those memories. Like it's amazing to go and say, I've got, look at my Facebook feed and stuff like that, or my Instagram feed. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. But to me, that's like, so for me, the goal that I have right now is to break 19 3/4 and then do a replica, and then beyond that, break 21. Break 22. And eventually that's sort of like where my goal is at. So, when it comes to, and I do think that actually like your note taking, it needs to get a little bit more of a spotlight put on it, because I think it's really important to take that information and kind of go with it. And you do have to set goals. Absolutely. I think it was earlier when we first started, it was this spring, and I was just having an awful spring. Like there was just 2 or 3 weeks where it was just terrible. And I went out, I was just having this awful day, and I said, nope. I'm going to strip everything way down. I'm just going to fish nothing but the TCR rig, because I know, one, I won't get hung up, and I've had nibbles at it before in this color. So I started working that, and I caught a couple of dinks, but I caught a couple of dinks and I set the goal and I saw it through. So you're right about setting goals, but I think that whether those goals are monetary or tournament based, in a structured competition, or even just with yourself, I think that what you're doing as far as like capturing this information and having this data, and definitely being able to go back and look at it is a great idea. So whether you're using your Instagram feed or you're using something like FishBrain or Angler and you're tracking your stuff that way, having the ability to go back and know what worked in what bodies of water at what time of year under what conditions is like the pinnacle of what you need to really just gain success.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm a big party guy. Like I like tournaments. And I like the social element of what we did on Saturday more than anything else. I'm a big social guy. So like, yeah.
With my friends, when I was really, I'm going to say learning my craft with the way I fish now, we would do either one-off events for a day, or, do a weekend long thing. And what I would do is, to make it a little fun, I would go over to, it's Din Trophy Brothers over in Holyoke. And I would have them make a little trophy, just something goofy engraved. We'd give it a silly name, and, it would be a little first place trophy and a lunker trophy. But then what I made sure to do was, whoever lost that weekend would have a scarlet letter. So I found this freaking old life preserver from I don't know what. It said the SS Lollipop on it, and that person had to have that in their boat until the next tournament. So
was it like the old canvas style? Like,
oh yeah, dude, it was awful. It was dirty. I didn't clean it. I'm like, whoever loses gets the SS Lollipop. It was disgusting.
That's awesome.
After a few beers, somebody's wearing it around their head. I'm like, you're gonna get syphilis from that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's awful. But yeah, I mean, competitive fishing's a fickle thing, and that's why you see throughout the year, and I can say this now after fishing competitively with a number of different groups over the past few years, you see people get really spun up in spring. I'm going to go out, I'm going to competitive fish, and I'm going to do this. And the numbers drop. By the time October rolls around, you see tournaments that would fill up in a week take 2 weeks to fill up.
Oh, yeah.
Tournaments that had 25 people in it now only have 10. You know, it happens because the enthusiasm wanes over the summer. And then on top of that, a lot of people get into it and they want to measure themselves. And I don't think they come into it with realistic goals. And they go up against some guys who are fishing in the national championship or fishing regional championships. And it's a meat grinder. You got to know what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
When you fish these things. So, I mean, what I can tell you with your situation, just to wrap this up, because we definitely have gone off a lot longer than I think we both were going to talk about this, but it's fine. I mean, this is a good conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And this episode's going to end up being like 3 hours because this interview is over an hour long, and it's worth everything. Like I think it is worth everything that's in there. Entertaining as hell. But this is also has a lot of value too, you know? So we're delivering. Jigs and Bigs is delivering today.
Yeah. Definite applause for us talking about this. But yeah, I mean, it's a different perspective. You should always be aware that, you know, even a tournament angler, an experienced tournament angler is not going to get every penny back they put in. Expect to lose some money. Yeah. You know, and
it's like any kind of gambling, you know? I mean, you're at the mercy of your abilities. You're also at the mercy of Mother Nature.
And you're at the mercy of things you can't control with other anglers. That's the big thing. And like I said, I have that athletic background. I played sports up through high school and continue to play even, you know, intramural leagues in the military. And I like that competition. I get a rush from that. And I don't know what you played for sports growing up, if you did, but if you have that and you like to compete, that's a different mindset. Really.
I think that it probably takes that to kind of transition from fishing as a leisure activity to fishing as a competitive activity and add that in there. And I was never into sports at all. I was I was the music geek. You know what I mean? Like it was all about just shit I wanted to do, you know? And I think that definitely makes it the crossover a little bit easier if you've got an athletic background and you're like, you've got some level of competition, no matter what it might be, you know?
Yeah. And I keep that fire burning with competition for myself for fishing. And then I still coach basketball and have for years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got it, you got it. If you want to compete, you're going to want to compete. And that's one thing that drives me. And when you do the homework, like I feel I have over the course of a decade, and you can go out and compete and you might not win many, but you win one, that means something. Like I am. I'm still in quite like in a state of disbelief that I went out on that Nashua River tournament and won that.
Yep.
But I prepped right. I didn't have to change lures. I knew what I was doing going in. And luckily my luck held out because there was some late runs at that shit. And I'm happy about that. That was an accomplishment.
Yep.
What I'm finding on a completely different friendly level of competition is over the past 3 months, I've gotten, I think, friendly with Mark Huard. Mark and I approach fishing completely differently.
Yeah.
And it has been an absolute slugfest between he and I with the way we're fishing. And it's so much fun because, you know, the other day I caught that tiger trout when we were out. And the first thing I got when the fish donkey thing went off was a text from Mark with a congratulations on my trout saying, hey, nice tiger trout. And then a middle finger with a laughing emoji. I'm like, oh, so that's where we're at now, Mark. Huh?
Yeah.
And then he responded, I think that day or the next day, he turned up a catfish. I'm like, what are you doing turning up catfish?
Yeah.
No, but it's been back and forth and it's really friendly. And I'm sure Brock's going to get into it because, you know, once I recap the Chronic Trips for the week, Brock has inserted himself into the title picture because he's a pretty heavy saltwater fisherman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fish to the level you're comfortable with. You're obviously you're comfortable with these with you know a one day maybe a gimmick event, which is awesome, man. And involve me in some of those because I like those too.
Yeah, I would absolutely. Like I think for just you know for me, I would love to further that a little bit. And I know you and I have talked about the idea of doing some Jigs and Bigs tournament stuff that comes from the podcast itself and organized it. And what's interesting is I feel like our our take on that has sort of been like a mirror image of exactly what we're talking about right now. Like, you've wanted to create a ongoing, regulated, monthly style tournament that was associated with the podcast that's out there for people to compete with. And my focus, I mean, I'm sure you recall, I've always said, I think that's a great idea, but I think we have to do at least a quarterly or a, semi-annually, like a listener thing that's nationwide. Anybody can take part of it, just have a good time and whatnot. And then I think even on the local level, I've said what really interests me is the idea of doing like a meetup event, something where you're like, you've got people that are all together. And like, it's for me, the big thing with fishing that I think is the greatest thing of the sum of all of it, whether they be competitors, whether they be industry people, whether they just be fellow anglers, fishing buddies. It's the community that I think is really special about what it is that we do. So like, regardless of what your role might be in that community, I think everybody's really important and that we all play a certain kind of role. So like, I think tournament wise, for me, if you're getting what you need to out of it, awesome. And I agree, like this Chronic Trips tournament is fantastic, especially if you're just like, I want to try tournament angling. This is a great way to do it. And, it's multi-species. It's fun. It's fantastic. For me, I know it's not necessarily the greatest spot to be in.
That's fine, man. Everybody's got a different perspective on stuff, and I get that. I mean, right now you're in it. You might as well finish it. That's my 2 cents.
I'm gonna throw a quote out there that is a Sean the Fisherman quote. There's a lot to unpack there. There's 100% a lot to unpack there. Couple of things. First off, about the clip as a whole, I mentioned that clip directly in the podcasters roundtable that I did that dropped on Christmas Eve. We talked about, one of the things was connecting with your audience, whether it be, and actually it was kind of brought up during the Debo clip. And I mentioned it here actually, like that, when you connect with your fans, and your followers, and you have that engagement, it comes full circle and you get feedback because of it. This episode brought tons of messages when it dropped, mainly through Instagram. A lot of messages, people came in and were just like, dude, I totally hear you. Like, I can't process the monthly competition in an effective way where it doesn't take a toll versus putting a competition into a shorter amount of time for a compartment and putting it there just to kind of process it. So it was amazing that we had this conversation and that feedback had come in, and I knew when I was kind of going through all this in my head, I was just like, I know I'm not the only one out there. I'm positive of it, but it was definitely reassuring when I got some people that were just like, I feel you. I know exactly how you feel. I've been there too. But also,
I got the opposite side. I got a lot of feedback of, is Bobby okay? Like he's getting really fucking wound up over a tournament, man. I got numerous messages of that, and I'm like, I honestly, and I was. We talked about it during the show, and since then, you and I have talked about it a couple of times. Like, oh yeah, I really think that because you didn't have an athletic background, us athletes develop that coping mechanism over time.
Yeah,
where you're not going to win every game.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like second nature. Like, I don't worry about it.
And I've
lost way more than I've won, and I know that. And
I hate to say that it's like you said, like, you're not going to win every game. It's not even so much about that, but it's more like it's got to do with like anxiety management. Is what it is. I mean, how is it easier to deal with anxiety for an 8-hour window or for a 30-day window?
Well, see, again, we talked about that during the podcast.
Yeah,
the anxiety you're managing over a 30-day period is way less than the anxiety you're managing.
Yes,
over the 8-hour. It's the intensity. The intensity is a slow burn.
Exactly. It's just that
you're road flare.
You're carrying it for a longer period of time. So you're picking it up and putting it down and picking it up. There's peaks and valleys, There's times where you're getting out there to fish, and then there's times that they're not. And it's, I know, like, for me mentally, it's a better decision to go into a situation, focus on a day, and say, this is what's happening, and it is what it is, because the end is right there. Like, the timing of that conversation was the first week of November. And keep in mind, I'm looking at my planner, and I'm knowing that I only have X amount number of hours that are available within that month to fish. So as those days are more and more, or I should say, increasingly less productive, the more that stress carries on. And it's that time in between that's the worst. It's not even when you're on the water. It's that time in between where it's just kind of eating at the back of your head. And you're like, son of a bitch. Like, that's what it is. But there was something else about that I thought was fantastic. I forgot that I mentioned this, but that competition that we had done with the Da Bomb hot sauce was amazing. Like, truly fantastic. It was so much fun. And you want to talk about, like, there were real stakes involved there, granted mainly for the loser. And like I said in that clip, I fished like garbage that day. It was terrible. I was carried by Joel and Andrew. Like, if it wasn't for them, I caught one fish, but it was the wrong species because we were only counting bass. I couldn't get on any bass at all, and I covered water. Like, I put the work in, and, we just had a great time with it. But you, Sean, had brought up something. You said that there's got to be some type of a food challenge that you can be part of,
Yes.
and get that involved with. So that got me kind of thinking, So, he said, so full disclosure here again, moving aside the beef curtain here so you guys know what's going on. During that clip, Sean and I were talking back and forth in a little private chat over here as things were going on about some items. And he mentions that there's got to be a friendly food-based competition that he can get involved in, for 2021. So I think the food challenge is a Rocky Mountain oyster food challenge. And for those that don't know what a Rocky Mountain oyster is, Google it. It'll be an educational experience for everybody involved. So I think what we'll probably end up doing is getting a group of people together locally. I don't think this is something that we should do with listeners all over the place. It'll be too hard to manage the penalty, right?
Penalty or the reward, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it'll be a penalty, trust me. Have you ever had Rocky Mountain oysters?
No, are they that bad?
Do you like things that are metallic tasting?
Metallic?
Yeah, a lot of minerals going on there.
Ugh.
Get ready.
Okay. Can we deep fry them? I can
Oh,
fry
that's
them, right?
they are deep fried. Yeah. Oh yeah,
All right.
absolutely. Yeah, they'll be deep fried.
As long as I can prepare them my own way.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
But they're significant, and so we came up with, as this clip was playing, we had various names that were thrown out there for the name of that challenge. And we're just going to throw it out here right now. And I know if anybody's listening to this, we're probably going to go ahead and put this together. But there's two things that we need. First off, we need to bring somebody in with some culinary background. Like, I want these to be the best 5-star testicles you've ever had in your mouth. Absolutely. I want them to be the best. Like, enjoy them as much as possible, So maybe we can partner with a local restaurant or something like that. We'll handle acquiring the nuts and then, having a professional kind of put these together. So we'll figure out the details, but I think we got to brand the hell out of it. So first name that came up was Balls in Your Court Challenge. And then I switched that around to Balls in Your Mouth Challenge. Then we got this is a good one. Deep Ballin' Challenge 21. I also put Balls Deep 21 and misspelled balls with BAWLZ. The Balls Deep Nibbler Off. We've got Nibbler Balls. It could be a good nibbler competition. Nibble these nuts. We got put Bull Balls in Your Mouths 2021 to 2021 Spring Sack Off. Ballin' with Bass. Catchin' Cojones. Large Mouths and Big Old Balls. This is probably going to be the winner. Scroats and Boats. Probably.
So
LMBs and Ds.
At this point, Nelson came into the house and I read them to him and he was laughing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There's probably going to be a short run limited edition T-shirt that goes along with this.
Oh my God.
I think it's going to be really good. So that's I think it needs to happen. So I think we'll compile these items and we'll put them out for a little bit of a poll on our Instagram, and you guys can kind of put a little bit of your own input into what we're going to title this 2021 food challenge here. Because I'll tell you what, if there is one type of a challenge or one type of a competition that I can get behind, it is something that involves creating content. I'm 100% into it.
And especially with food. The whole time we were recording, we should make note that you and I, during the longer clips, ran to and from our refrigerators and we're eating things on mute because it's the day after Christmas and there's leftovers everywhere. Yeah, we did that.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep. And sending text messages with scrotes and boats and
I have my
LMBs and Ds.
my vision is I think that it's either going to be Balls Deep 21 or Scrotes and Boats. I have a feeling it's one of those. LMBs and Ds is pretty good, but Scrotes and Boats, there's artwork that could go along with that.
How about LMDs?
LMDs?
That's pretty good. Then we could just make it a largemouth only fight to the death for testicles. Yeah, we got options here.
Idea. LMDs.
What the fuck? What have I just got myself into? Metallic.
I love, all organ meats have like a minerally kind of taste. It's like, you've eaten liver, right?
Oh God, no.
No,
I've never eaten liver. Nope.
You've never eaten liver?
No, Nelson, you ever eat nuts?
Not nuts.
Yeah, like bull nuts. No, Nelson has never eaten bull nuts either.
Yeah, I mean, all the organ meats have a little bit of like mineralness. Like sometimes it's like licking an iron fence. Sometimes it's so.
Sounds like you have experience doing that.
I am an adventurous eater. I have had. I've had liver many times in my life from various creatures. Right. It's just the way that the organ meats work. But the testicles are. Damn, I had Rocky Mountain oysters. I don't know. I don't think I have. If I did, they weren't deep fried.
We're not putting hot sauce on them.
No, I mean, I honestly, I think what we're gonna end up doing is having if we're gonna do this. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to end up a lot like Da Bomb Hot Sauce Challenge, where sure the losers have to do whatever, but I have a feeling everybody involved is going to get in on the action. So there's probably going to be a shore full of anglers with balls in their mouth at one point or another.
And on top of that, if you want to really throw something in there, hit the drums. I got a freezer full of kielbasa.
There you go. That's true. Yeah.
Balls and Shaft 21. Nelson just giggled, just so you're aware.
It's the LMD's fishing tournament and post wrap party will be a sausage party. Yeah. That's what we'll do. It'll be fun. We're freaking idiots.
Yes, we are.
Oh, but yeah, so that clip, it was a doozy, but there's a lot in there. There really, really is. There's a shitload in there. And then what's interesting is even the talk about the tournament. Like, did you catch that? How we were talking about how we wanted to start doing some tournament stuff in there, and look at where we are now. Like, that was one of the first things that kind of hit me when I went through that clip beforehand. When we started listening to this, I was like, man, that's crazy. Like, we were talking about wanting to have an actual, like, rigid outline tournament practice that we were directly involved in. And here you are now, tournament director for the western part of the state of the MAKB trail. That's huge.
And look at you, because you're going to be involved in any of the events for it, which is what you love to death.
Exactly.
So, yeah, this is going to be a nice, big, fun. I mean, it's going to be a learning experience, but it's definitely going to be fun to see what options are available. Will Bobby Roast Beef zip by on a jet ski to try and do on-air interviews?
It's possible. I'm glad you mentioned that because there was an episode, I forget when it was, but I wanted to bring this up and I kept forgetting about it. And I'm curious if I'm the only one, but I have seen specifically on my Facebook feed, on my news feed, a ridiculous amount of ads from Sea-Doo.
About what, for fishing?
A fishing jet ski.
Yeah, I'm out.
Oh, I'm out too.
It's on the ocean. They can go on the ocean. That way, at least,
it's like
there's a fair chance a great white will mistake him for a seal out here on the coast of New England.
It's I'm out too. I mean, I think I have a feeling this is something that was supposed to come out like some point in 2020 and didn't. And I think it looks like some promotional videos have been around for a year or even a little more. And now it seems like they're rolling out and starting to push for this. I mean, is it like $6,000 or $7,000? To get into one of these. I just out of curiosity, I decided to take a look at it and see what I'm like, why would you do that? Like, I would just get a boat. Like, if you're going to make that much of a financial commitment, or save yourself half and get a power kayak, because you can do that for half the price.
What does it have? Fish finders on it? What is this thing?
I don't think it's equipped for anything. I think that it has honestly, I think it has like 2 rod holders. And it seems like it has a larger platform, but it still has a bench style seat that you sit on. You basically straddle, but it still goes the entire duration. It also has a couple of spots where you can add a cooler, and you can add a cooler to it to use it as a live well or for bait or anything like that. So, I mean, I get it. Like, it seems like it's just got a couple of accessories that are in there. It's not really anything that I think would lend itself to any kind of actual angling. And I mean, for that amount of money, for that amount of investment, I kind of floored me, but I kept forgetting about it. And then when you mentioned jet skis, I'm like, oh, no, that's it. And that ain't happening.
I hope the dealership provides lube, because whoever buys it's going to need it.
So you haven't seen this ad?
No.
Yeah. I was just curious if it was just me, and I wonder why. Like, I don't know what I haven't even considered jet ski. I don't think I've even really spoken much about jet skis.
Even if you thought about it, Google can read your thoughts at this point, and Facebook can too. So the minute that joke of an idea of the Bobby Roast Beef Jet Ski Fishing League popped into your head, bam, done.
Yeah. I don't get it. But yeah, I was just curious if you had seen it, because it looks like it's rough. And I'm like, I looked into it. I was like, I wonder, what's this look like? What would this do for your typical, angler that's on the bank that wants to get off of the bank? Like, what would that look like for them? And I'm like, I can't think of anybody who would drop, $6,000. $5,000 even, if it was even that cheap and they were able to get into it. I can't think of anybody who would do that when you could just get like an Old Town power kayak for half that price.
I can think of plenty of people that would do it. I just don't know their names.
Yeah.
We see jet skiers all the time, and people are bringing fishing rods out there. I've seen videos of it on YouTube.
I have seen a couple people do it, but I feel like it's more novelty than anything.
People would do it.
Yeah?
I guarantee it. I guarantee we would see the recreational craft that we normally would see. People would get that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I bet it would happen. Sucks, but.
Yeah, I'm like, at that point, I mean, it just seems like you've got money to burn at that point. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh, so yeah, I think that about does it. I mean, do we have anything that we have to go over, things that are coming up? I have a couple of guests that are scheduled for some other good stuff shortly. I'm actually recording an interview Monday, and then I have a couple more that still need to get scheduled. I know we still got to talk with Casey Reed to get that all squared away, and so I mean we've got stuff coming up. You guys go ahead and enjoy yourselves, and enjoy this Christmas vacation, if you will, and have a happy New Year. Sean, you have anything you want to wrap with?
Hope everybody enjoyed the recap. We thought this year was great. Thanks for listening. And that's all I got, man.
Yeah.
Get ready for 2021. It can't be as bad as this. God, did I just jinx us?
Yeah, I know. Good job. Good job.
I should know better being from New England.
So, yeah. Have a happy New Year, everybody. I hope you guys enjoy it, and take good care of each other. We'll see you guys in 2021 for more Jigs and Bigs goodness. And like we say at the end of every single episode, tight lines.